Chapter 304. The lakeside of the Lotus Lake was already crowded with people. Most of them were Confucian scholars. Their clothes were fluttering in the wind, and they looked indescribably elegant. In such an environment, even if one wasn't a refined scholar or a lecherous motu, one would still have to pretend to be like this. Many young people pretended to be refined scholars while glancing at the faces, bodies, breasts, waists, and other places of the young girls passing by. Then, they tried their best to pretend to be upright like a courageous and upright gentleman. They hoped that the beauty would take a fancy to them, and think that they were reliable and would repay them with their bodies. However, they didn't know that the more they acted like this, the more hopeless it was. Women didn't like hooligans, and they didn't like pointless chatter. But if you didn't even dare to chat, then you wouldn't have as many chances as a hooligan. Lotus and Heart, 3 big camps were faintly formed. One group was wearing purple, one group was wearing white, and the other group was wearing black. Chu Yang looked from afar, and knew that this group of people wearing black was Jun Lulu's camp. This nephew was worthy of being called Dark Bamboo. Even the music competition had a faint aura of an underworld society. At the center of the Lotus Lake, there were also many large boats gathered together to form an extremely large platform. It stood tall, and 7 colored ribbons were fluttering in the wind. Bursts of music were drifting in all directions. The competition hadn't started yet, but this place was already bustling with activity. Too many merchants and peddlers seized the opportunity to enter. They were using this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make money. This was a great business opportunity. Usually, even stingy people wouldn't bargain at this moment. They would slaughter to their heart's content. Chu Yang was wearing black clothes. He was slowly walking among the willow trees on the shore. His thoughts were flying, and he seemed to be aimless. His heart was also in a bit of a mess. Duke Yu had already left for Jun Lulu's big ship. But the words he said before he left had opened up a mystery in Chu Yang's heart. It also made his heart flutter in the night. He finally knew why the blue-clothed man had suddenly disappeared. He must have been summoned back by the clan. But after hearing this news, Chu Yang's heart suddenly had an indescribable feeling. When the black-clothed man was there, he tried every possible way to make Chu Yang go home with him, or take out the jade pendant to have a look. But Chu Yang also tried every possible way to escape. It wasn't that he didn't want to solve the mystery of his birth, but he was terrified. Chu Yang, who had lived 2 lives, had already seen through life and death. The only thing left in his heart was a trace of obsession. However, this was the only thing that made him feel terrified. Although Chu Yang was trying to avoid it, he faintly felt that more than half of his life experience was related to the baby that the Chu clan had abandoned years ago. There was anticipation in his heart, but there was also resistance and fear. This was Chu Yang's conflicted feelings about his life experience. But, if he had really been ruthlessly abandoned, then Chu Yang would feel much more relaxed. After severing this part, he would no longer have any attachments. It was no big deal for him to wander the world. Because he didn't have any extravagant hopes in the first place, there was no disappointment. Even if he hated them, he couldn't kill them, right? But now, he knew that they might have been lost. This feeling was much more complicated. Chu Yang sighed softly. He leaned against a willow tree, and looked up at the sky through the green branches. The 3 enlightened beings were above his head. At this moment, the surrounding people suddenly quieted down. At the same time, a sound of orderly footsteps was heard in front of him. A group of great Zhao's soldiers, who were dressed in neat military uniforms, walked over in an orderly manner. Chu Yang looked around, and saw that the entire Lotus Lake was full of soldiers. There were also some plain-clothed people who were clearly experts in martial arts. They were quietly mixed in with the crowd. Have you heard? This time's 3 Masters Conference is very important. Even Prime Minister Diwu is coming. No wonder, the security is so tight. I didn't expect Prime Minister Diwu to have such refined interests. Chu Yang frowned. Diwu Qingru is coming? Why? Chu Yang didn't believe that Diwu Qingru would have such leisure time. The most important thing for Diwu Qingru to do now was to be busy in his prime minister's mansion. If he really came, then he must have a purpose. Moreover, It must be a very important and big purpose. But what was worth Diwu Qingru's personal visit? At this moment, a burst of flute music suddenly rose in spirals. It spiraled up into the sky, and seemed to cover up all the sounds of the Lotus Lake. The sound of the flute slowly spread out. It was actually the song Immortal Guest from the Heavens. It was full of joy and joy. Everyone who heard it couldn't help but reveal a joyful expression on their faces. At the same time, a pleasure boat slowly approached the shore. A group of people dressed in white neatly got off the boat, and walked towards Chu Yang's direction. Chu Yang leaned against the tree, and looked at the approaching people with an expressionless face. "Are you the big fish pulling the boat that day?" the white-clothed people approached. The leader respectfully saluted and asked, "The big fish pulling the boat that day?" Chu Yang was speechless. What kind of address was this? However, he smiled bitterly in his heart. The other party didn't know him. It was understandable for them to address him as nephew. "What's wrong?" "My elder sister Xiao Yu heard about Mr.'s strange incident that day. She is very grateful to Mr. She wants to invite Mr. to come on the boat for a chat. I don't know if Mr. will agree." This person's attitude was very respectful, and even somewhat cautious. "Your elder sister Xiao Yu?" Chu Yang's eyes flashed. "Transverse flute master?" "Yes," the big man unconsciously stuck out his chest and said proudly. Chu Yang understood. He had thought that the song Immortal Guest from the Heavens was meant to welcome Diwu Qingru. He hadn't expected that it was meant to welcome him. However, this song was meant to welcome Diwu Qingru when he arrived. It was also meant to please Diwu Qingru. It could be said that it was a win-win situation. However, if this transverse flute master Xiao Yu knew that her song had welcomed Diwu Qingru and King of Hell Chu at the same time, wouldn't her expression be very interesting? "Tell your elder sister Xiao Yu that I will come on the boat to visit her." "But not now," Chu Yang said with a smile. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the first king-level master of the Golden Horse Riders Department, Jing Meng Hun, walking towards him with a pleasantly surprised look on his face. So, he had no choice but to decline this person's invitation. Jing Meng Hun quickly walked over while they were talking. He cupped his hands in greeting. "What a coincidence. So, Mr. is here. No wonder I feel that the air in this willow forest is so fresh and refreshing." He didn't even look at the white-clothed people. The white-clothed people were about to get angry when their leader recognized that this person was the one who had been following Diwu Qingru. He was startled. He saluted Chu Yang, and quickly retreated. Chu Yang smiled insincerely and said, "According to King-level Master Jing's words, it seems that I will have to live in Prime Minister Diwu's mansion. Prime Minister Diwu will be able to feel relaxed and happy every day." Jing Meng Hun looked up to the sky and laughed out loud. He then said, "Prime Minister Diwu must be looking for something." Chu Yang secretly laughed in his heart. He thought, Diwu Qingru must be looking for something. Diwu Qingru will vomit blood if I live in his headquarters. "Mister, if you have nothing to do, how about we go on the boat?" Jing Meng Hun asked enthusiastically. "Forget it. I am used to being a wild crane. I don't like worldly etiquette." Chu Yang refused. It was true that he had changed his appearance, but being able to fool Jing Meng Hun didn't mean that he could fool Diwu Qingru. Chu Yang thought about how he had made ample preparations at Heaven Reaching Tower, but still couldn't dispel Diwu Qingru's suspicions. Chu Yang felt a lingering fear towards Diwu Qingru's powerful spiritual sense. If he was seen through again this time, then he would really be in trouble. "It's fine. Whenever Mr. comes, I will welcome you with all my heart." Jing Meng Hun didn't feel offended. He was still smiling. "Ah, King-level Master Jing isn't accompanying the Prime Minister. Where are you going?" Chu Yang asked in puzzlement. Looking at Jing Meng Hun's appearance, it was clear that he was going to live somewhere else. "Ah, there is a small matter. The Prime Minister asked me to deal with it. On the way, I will go back to get some things." Jing Meng Hun said. "Go back to get some things?" Chu Yang's mind suddenly became active. What a coincidence. I also want to go there to buy some herbs. Let's go together. Chu Yang's attitude suddenly became enthusiastic. Good, good. Jing Menghun was overjoyed at the unexpected good news. This mysterious master was willing to travel with him. This proved that the relationship between the two sides had become closer. The two walked side by side, and quickly walked. "What kind of herbs does Mr. need?" Jing Menghun asked while walking. There is nothing I can do," Chu Yang said. "The day before yesterday, I had a battle with Mr. Yu. I was injured. I was looking for some spirit herbs to recover. But where can I find them in the lower three heavens? Besides, my sword was destroyed by that guy in the battle. I need some good steel and metal." Speaking till here, Chu Yang shook his head helplessly and said, "These things are easy in the upper three heavens. But here, let's not talk about it." "Upper three heavens? Easy in the upper three heavens?" Jing Menghun's eyes suddenly lit up. "If Mr. Yu doesn't mind, I have some top-quality materials." Jing Menghun came forward and said, "But I am afraid that the best quality materials in Mr. Yu's eyes are only ordinary goods, but it is better than nothing." Chu Yang turned his head and looked at him. He finally smiled and said, "Forget it. It is not easy for you to collect these materials in the lower three heavens. I will just find 2 pieces of iron." Jing Menghun anxiously said, "Mr. Yu, I am sincere. The materials are precious, but how can they compare to the importance of a friend?" Chu Yang stared at him and muttered, "If that is the case, I will take Mr. Yu immediately." Jing Menghun's eyebrows were raised in joy. "Well, I owe you one more time." Chu Yang sighed. He thought, "You can't blame me for this. It was you who wanted to reveal the secrets of the Golden Horse Riders department in front of me." Jing Menghun's body suddenly felt light. He almost laughed out loud to vent his excitement. "Mr. Yu, please. May I ask Mr. Yu's surname?" King-level expert Jing asked cautiously. "My surname?" Chu Yang looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. He softly said after a long time, "My surname is Yi. Your elder brother did not want a high position and a high salary, nor did he want to bring honor to our ancestors. But I thought, our future generations could not live in the wilderness like us, right?" His eyes were full of sorrow as he said, "Everyone says that we are king-level masters. But who would have thought that we are so inexperienced? Even when it comes to learning to read, we had to catch an old guy and force him to teach us. If other people don't speak clearly, we can't understand them. Even if they scold us, do our future generations have to be like that too? That's why I accepted Prime Minister Diwu's invitation. I did not do it for this superior position." Yin Wu Fa smiled miserably. "Since we came to the province, the Golden Horse Riders department has been growing bigger and bigger. Every time we acted, we were successful. Under Prime Minister Diwu's strategic planning, we were almost invincible. We became the king of the dark and gloomy world of the lower three heavens, but we were not happy. Originally, the 3 of us brothers ate and drank together every day. But ever since we lived a life of luxury, the 3 of us got together and drank together. This was very rare. Last year, second brother Kong died in battle." Yin Wu Fa took a deep breath. His voice became hoarse. "From now on, the 3 of us brothers will never be able to sit at the same table and drink together again." Yin Wu Tian did not speak. He was silently massaging Yin Wu Fa, but his face became more and more sorrowful. "There will never be such a day again." Yin Wu Fa smiled unconsciously. Then, 2 drops of tears suddenly rolled down his cheeks as he said in a daze, "And all of this is because of my decision to join the Golden Horse Riders department. It was I who pulled second brother Kong into the Golden Horse Riders department. And second brother Kong died in battle for me." The room suddenly became deathly silent. Only the breathing of the 2 brothers became heavier and heavier. Yin Wu Fa's eyes looked straight into the void. Then, he suddenly said in a soft voice, "Little brother, I want to drink some wine." Yin Wu Tian did not answer. He did not go to get the wine. Instead, he said to himself, "Brother, do you know? When that man stepped on my chest and slapped me again and again, I wanted to kill myself by breaking my own heart. But I did not die in the end. I did not." Yin Wu Tian closed his eyes. Tears rolled down his cheeks. "I am not afraid of death. But I am afraid of humiliation. That kind of humiliation. If your body was in good condition, even if the humiliation was only half of that day, I would have died long ago. But, I thought, if second brother died, what would happen to your body if I died as well? Yin Wu Tian said in a hoarse voice, Prime Minister Diwu could not possibly raise you for a lifetime. Yin Wu Fa's face was gloomy and gloomy. His eyes flashed with a kind of longing as he said, Little brother, wait until we destroy Iron Cloud and kill King of Hell Chu. We will take second brother's ashes back to the mountain. We will go back to the place where we came from. We will not come out for a lifetime, okay? Go back to the place where we came from. We will not come out for a lifetime. Yin Wu Tian repeated in a murmur. His eyes shone brightly as he said in a heavy tone, Okay. The two brothers did not speak. One was lying down, and the other was sitting. They had stopped all their movements and were quietly lost in thought. Their originally gloomy and untamed faces revealed a faint expectation. It seemed as if the life they had imagined was already in front of their eyes. The atmosphere in the room was dense and misty. Footsteps were heard outside. Yin Wu Tian looked out of the window and saw Jing Menghun walking quickly towards them. His face was full of excitement. Behind him was a young man with his hands clasped behind his back. He was strolling leisurely. It seemed as if he was sightseeing in the temporary headquarters of the Golden Horse Riders Department. Yin Wu Tian suddenly felt that this young man looked familiar. He was shocked when he saw him as he walked closer. Yin Wu Fa saw that his complexion was not right. He could not help but ask, What's wrong? It's Big Brother Jing has returned. Yin Wu Tian swallowed his saliva. Fourth brother. Jing Menghun rushed into the room and said, Fourth brother, you accompany Yigong to my private collection. If Yigong needs anything, there is no harm in taking it all away. Your private collection? Yin Wu Tian was about to say, What private collection do you have? There is only one place where we both keep our treasures. However, he saw that Jing Menghun was repeatedly winking at him with an anxious expression. Good. Yin Wu Tian immediately regained his composure and agreed. Well, you do your best to take care of Yigong. But if you need anything, you don't need to go through me. Jing Menghun waved his hand in a very bold manner and said, I will take something and go back immediately. The Prime Minister is still waiting for me. As he said this, Chu Yang slowly walked in. Yin Wu Tian's old face suddenly turned red as he recalled his shameful appearance that day. He sullenly stepped forward and saluted, So it is benefactor. Fourth King level Master Yin, you don't have to be so polite. Chu Yang looked at him with a smile. He seemed to know what Yin Wu Fa was thinking. So, he kindly comforted him, victory and defeat are common in war. Fourth King level Master, you know when to yield and when to stand tall. You are a true hero. Yin Wu Tian nodded with a grateful look in his eyes. At this time, Jing Menghun was afraid that Diwu Qingru would become anxious from waiting. So, he hurriedly greeted Chu Yang. Then, he repeatedly reminded Yin Wu Tian that he must accompany this distinguished guest and not disappoint him. After that, he hurriedly left. Yin Wu Fa, who was lying on the bed, struggled to get up. He looked at Chu Yang with a doubtful look in his eyes. When he saw Chu Yang, he didn't know why, but he had a faint feeling of déjà vu in his heart. But, he had never seen this face before. Yin Wu Fa was deep in thought when he saw that Chu Yang had turned his head to look at him. He gently frowned and said, This is my elder brother, my blood-related elder brother. Yin Wu Fa introduced him. Yin Wu Tian introduced. Then, his heart suddenly moved, and he stepped forward. His eyes revealed a fervent look as he said, Duki, I have a presumptuous request. My elder brother has been paralyzed in bed ever since he got injured. He can't feel the lower half of his body. Duki has remarkable abilities. May I ask, what can you do? Injured. Minister Chu seemed puzzled as he asked, what kind of injury could be so serious? Many doctors in the province have not been able to find any injuries. Yin Wu Tian's face revealed an indignant look as he said, I only know that the meridians in his lower body have suddenly necrotized for some unknown reason. Chu Yang frowned and said, Oh, let me take a look. Of course, he knew why. He had been by Yin Wu Fa's side when he had been injured. It could be said that he was one of the main culprits. Now that he had come to diagnose, he would be much more accurate than the so-called divine doctor. He put on an act and extended 2 fingers to touch Yin Wu Fa's meridians. Then, he closed his eyes slightly as if he was examining and contemplating. Yin Wu Fa and Yin Wu Tian were full of hope as they looked at his face. They were counting on this remarkable Duke Yi to have a solution. The meridians below the waist are broken, and they reach the thighs. As for the meridians below, they are safe and sound. But, they have lost their source, and have become rootless water. They are already useless. Chu Yang pretended to sigh, and said, "The person who did this is very ruthless." Yin Wu Fa and Yin Wu Tian's hearts shivered as they said, "Please explain in detail." "It is invisible sword energy." Chu Yang's expression was heavy as he said, "The sword energy is very poisonous. It has completely destroyed the meridians in the waist. This injury is incurable." Invisible sword energy? Incurable? Both of them were frightened out of their wits. At the same time, they were puzzled in their hearts. When did he get hit by the invisible sword energy? Moreover, this invisible sword energy was attacked when he was completely defenseless. Chu Yang's face revealed a puzzled look. "King-level Master Yin, with your king-level cultivation, how could you not feel anything? Only when you are completely defenseless would such a situation occur. And the strangest thing is that you don't know who did it." The complexions of Yin Wu Fa and Yin Wu Tian changed greatly. They looked at each other and saw the suspicion and resentment in each other's eyes. If that's the case, then this injury was definitely not caused by a chaotic battle. Chapter 306. In fact, Yin Wu Fa had always been curious about his injuries. In his memory, he had rushed out of the heavy encirclement. At that time, after being rescued by Kong Shongxin, he had used his 2 legs to run back. At that time, he was sure that he had not received such an attack. And this kind of attack was obviously a malicious attack. Then, he fell into a coma for a month. After waking up, half of his body was paralyzed. During that month, only Cheng Yunji he had been by his side. However, there was a problem. Cheng Yunji he obviously did not know martial arts. Where did he get the invisible sword energy? But if it was not for him, no one else would have had such an opportunity. Could it be that Cheng Yunji he had arranged for someone to do it? The 2 brothers looked at each other in doubt. They did not know that Chu Yang was even more surprised. When Cheng Yunji he had brought Yin Wu Fa back, he and Jiu Duxing had seen Yin Wu Fa's corpse with their own eyes. Moreover, it had been frozen into an ice cube. How could he appear here alive and well? If Chu Yang had not been tempered like a steel bar in his 2 lives, he would have turned pale with fright. Seeing a ghost, really seeing a ghost. So this bastard is not dead. Chu Yang thought to himself. Seeing a ghost, really seeing a ghost. Yin Wu Tian muttered, "What the hell is going on?" The 2 brothers' faces were very ugly. But in front of an outsider like Chu Yang, it was not convenient to say it out loud. "Little brother, you accompany Yi Gong to do his business," Yin Wu Fa urged. He needed time to calm down and reflect on his grief. "Yes." Yin Wu Tian agreed. He turned around and said, "Yi Gong, please." The moment Chu Yang walked out of the door, Yin Wu Fa, who was lying on the bed, suddenly asked softly, "Yi Gong, are you from the Yi clan of the upper 3 heavens?" Chu Yang's footsteps paused. He did not turn around and said, "King-level Master Yin, you also know about the Yi clan?" After he finished speaking, he did not say anything else and walked away. Behind him, Yin Wu Fa's face showed a trace of relief. He really is from the Yi clan. No wonder boss respects him so much. If he is from the Yi clan, then the familiar feeling in my heart, is it an illusion? After lying down for so long, even illusions began to appear. Yin Wu Fa's face was frighteningly gloomy. He mumbled, "Cheng Yun. He." With a cracking sound, his right hand, which was placed on the edge of the bed, unconsciously grabbed the edge of the bed and crushed it into pieces. "Dukey, please. This is our golden horse, our big brother Jing's private collection." Yin Wu Tian led Chu Yang through a few circles. Then, They left the temporary general headquarters and arrived at the backyard of a house. They exchanged a few words, and the guards quietly hid on one side. Yin Wu Tian stretched out his hand and pressed on a big tree. A faint creaking sound was heard. The tree's dense branches suddenly moved to one side and revealed a huge flagstone. Moving the stone slab aside, a passageway leading downwards was created. "This is Prime Minister Diwu's backyard," Yin Wu Tian said indifferently. "It is also the safest place in the entire continent city." "Diwu Qingru's backyard?" Chu Yang's expression changed as he softly repeated this sentence. This was really unexpected. This was Diwu Qingru's backyard. Then, Diwu Qingru's hidden treasure, would it also be here? As they walked downwards, there were 3 stone doors in a row. Then, there were 3 doors made entirely of fine steel. Each door was several feet thick. Chu Yang was secretly dumbfounded. This kind of defensive density was simply unimaginable. So, what kind of treasures were hidden here? Finally, the space in front of them slowly became bigger. They walked to the end and saw 2 fine steel doors side by side. This place was probably more than 300 feet, or even 100 meters underground. But it was surprisingly dry, without the slightest bit of moisture. Moreover, the air was fresh, just like on the surface. Just by looking at this hidden treasure house, one could tell how much manpower and material resources had been spent on it. This side has medicinal herbs. On this side, there are some rare and precious items, Yin Wu Tian explained. "What does Juki need?" "I need some medicinal herbs. I fought with Jukyu the other day for several days and nights. So, I suffered some injuries. I need to heal them." Chu Yang casually said, "Moreover, my sword was broken by Jukyu. So, I need some materials to forge a new one." Yin Wu Tian was full of admiration. He had fought with Jukyu for several days and nights, and had only suffered some minor injuries. Moreover, Jukyu was able to break Juki's sword. How could the public sword of the most powerful clan of the upper 3 heavens be ordinary goods? "How about we look at the medicine first?" Yin Wu Tian's attitude became more respectful. He said with concern, "You can't delay the treatment of your injuries." "All right." Chu Yang smiled and said, "Fourth King level master is really attentive." This was his praise for Yin Wu Tian's concern for his own injuries. "I'm not in a hurry. I'll look carefully." Chu Yang smiled gently and said, "This nephew is really beyond my expectations." Then, he walked to the front of the first cabinet, pressed a button, and pulled it open. Suddenly, the unique fragrance of ginseng rushed into his nose. After it was pulled open, it was clear that there were 3 ginseng plants. They had a nose, eyes, arms, and legs. They were in human form. This row of 8 cabinets is full of ginseng. Starting from this one, there are ordinary wild ginseng, red jade ginseng, snow ginseng, blood ginseng, white ginseng, purple jade ginseng, grass, and so on. Each of them is more than 500 years old. Yin Wu Tian smiled as he introduced them. Chu Yang exhaled. He pushed the cabinet inside, and then pulled open the adjacent cabinet. However, his right hand was tightly attached to the outside of the previous cabinet. It seemed that he was unconsciously supporting it. Then, he pulled open another cabinet and closed another one, but every time, his right hand would press on the cabinet that was previously closed. He had checked more than a dozen cabinets in the blink of an eye. Chu Yang stood up. He shook his head helplessly and disappointedly and said, "The medicine is okay. It's a pity that it's not old enough. Let me look at these cabinets, eh?" Yin Wu Tian's face turned red with shame. The medicines here are priceless treasures in my opinion. But, Juki has already looked at 12 cabinets, and he hasn't even seen a single one of them. The aristocrats of the upper 3 heavens are really different. This knowledge, this eyesight, this experience, this is the difference between realms. Then, Juki opened another cabinet. He looked at it a few times, closed it, and opened it again. The sword point of Calamity Sword was so excited that it was going crazy. Happy. Too happy. Every time Chu Yang opened the cabinet and closed it, the sword Calamity would sneakily emerge from the fingertips of his right hand. Then, it would silently drill into the cabinet that was already closed and feast on the contents of the cabinet. Speed. The sword point of calamity sword seemed to know that time was pressing. For this reason, it didn't hesitate to reach an agreement with the sword point. As a result, the speed of absorption was godly. Once it went in, it would touch, and there would be nothing left. The ginseng that had been absorbed earlier had turned into small dried radishes. Not to mention the medicinal efficacy, the sword point absorbed, and the sword point transported. As their cooperation became more and more tacit, the speed of the two little guys became faster and faster. After absorbing more than a dozen cabinets, the sword spirit finally joined in, unwilling to be left out. It couldn't be helped. The sword point of calamity sword was absorbing the essence. The remaining residue was also extremely precious medicinal efficacy. These were all piled up in Chu Yang's meridians. They were about to burst. Therefore, the sword point stole, and the sword point transported. The sword spirit was responsible for extracting them from his meridians bit by bit, and extracting them into the space of calamity sword. Everyone divided the work and cooperated happily. Minister Chu opened and closed the cabinets faster and faster. Bang, open, bang, close, bang, open another one, bang. Chapter 307. Inside this secret chamber, there were almost all the elixirs that Shima Knight Department had plundered from all over the years. They had even extorted and robbed from others. There was also a considerable part of it, which was the property of the rich and officials after they had plagiarized the property of the rich and powerful. Almost everything that was valuable had been gathered here. Golden Horse Riders Department had a special appraisal system for this purpose. Only the high-grade items would be collected. Almost all the top forces of a country were operating at the same time. Moreover, this included unscrupulous methods. So, how big was this base? Moreover, there was also Diwu Qing Ru's personal collection over the years. These were even more extraordinary. Most of them were given to Diwu Qing Ru by the sects protecting the country of Great Zhao. These big sects thought that they could take out, were there any low-grade items? But now, it was all a tragedy. King of Hell Chu was like a bandit crossing the border. He began to implement the three empty policy: steal it all, take it all, rob it all. Then he had to earn a super innocent reputation and the magnanimity of the number one clan of Upper Three Heavens. Think about it, this was very difficult. He had to do all the bad things, and he still had to be a saint. Minister Chu swept the floor with a disapproving look on his face. He shook his head from time to time and sighed. It's a pity. If it could be 300 years old, this is actually not bad. It's well preserved. It's a pity that the color doesn't turn white. It's missing some essence. This is not good. It's a pity that this blood lotus flower can't bloom for a few more years. It's only a few more years. What a pity. This excavation is not a professional. So many roots have been cut off. What's the use? What a pity. I'm speechless. This alchemy page. It's a pity. Treasure Heavenly Matters sale. You people. What should I say? He complained and belittled while wantonly stealing under the eyes of others. He didn't put any of the rubbish that he himself had said. Fourth King level Master Yin, who had been accompanying him from the beginning, had been proud of himself. Now, his face was red and he couldn't speak. She was truly ashamed of herself. Things that were treasured by his own family were disdainful in the eyes of others. This feeling was truly indescribable. It didn't take long for Chu Yang to finish inspecting the large row on the left side. Then, he moved to the right side. It was still a one-step process: opening, closing, and stealing. But this time, he had to put on an act. He couldn't just sit there and not take anything, right? His standards were too high. Hence, this. I'll reluctantly take one. He took out the smallest one among the 10. Well, Yi Gong, it doesn't matter if you take more, Yin Wu Tian said politely. You don't have much here. These things aren't very good. But, they're still very rare in the lower 3 heavens. Chu Yang put on a sanctimonious appearance. He spoke with a noble character and unquestionable integrity. It's not appropriate for me to take more. These words made Minister Chu blush in his heart. What's wrong with taking an extra one? You've already taken everything. How can you say that? Yin Wu Tian sighed with emotion. This is truly the style of a great master. Just the fact that she was able to put herself in someone else's shoes was worthy of admiration. In less than 2 hours, Chu Yang had swept through all the cabinets. He was still not satisfied. He held 4 or 5 medicinal herbs in his hand. He turned his head to look at Yin Wu Tian and said, "These are barely usable." He seemed to have seen through Yin Wu Tian's doubts. He smiled and said, "King-level Master Yin, you don't know. My Yi clan's mental cultivation method is a bit special. Therefore, these healing items are also somewhat different from the rest. Well, if you had a treasure like a great wonder medicine, then you wouldn't need these." Chu Yang felt very strange. The quality of the herbs here is very good, and there are many of them. Almost every one of them is a rare medicinal herb. But I haven't seen a single one of those legendary great wonder medicines. This shouldn't be. Zhongji swallowed a piece of jade spirit ginseng. Where did it go? So, that's how it is. Yin Wu Tian said with relief. Then, his face exposed an awkward expression. But, the great wonder medicine. I remember that Prime Minister has it. But, it's a life-saving item. So, he usually carries it with him. I don't know where it is. But, Prime Minister isn't here. He's at the Lotus Lake. Why don't you wait for a while? Prime Minister will certainly be willing to take it out when he comes back. So, that's how it is. Chu Yang smiled and said magnanimously, "It's not a problem. These are enough. There's no need to trouble Prime Minister Diwu. He had a guilty conscience as a thief. Plus, his identity was very sensitive. So, how could he dare to face Diwu Qingru? Let's go and see if there are any good materials for sword practice," Chu Yang said with a smile. "I hope we can gain something." He urged him to stop this guy from inspecting the warehouse again. "Yes, please. Come this way, Yi Gong." Yin Wu Tian clapped his hands and said happily, "The materials over there won't disappoint Yi Gong." "I hope so." Chu Yang smiled indifferently. He said in his heart, "Actually, I'm not disappointed with the herbs here. I'm very satisfied. I don't know if Diwu Qingru will cry if he finds out." The two of them withdrew. Then, Yin Wu Tian carefully locked the door. Then, he started the engine and closed the door. He was busy for a while. Chu Yang waited with a smile on his face. In fact, he wanted to say, "Don't be so busy. There's nothing inside. You don't have to worry about anything even if the door is wide open." Then, Yin Wu Tian opened the door on the other side and said, "Yi Gong, please." Chu Yang went in to take a look. He immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. The inside was much bigger than the other side. There was a long passage that extended into several rooms. It was full of all kinds of materials. All kinds of ores. Meteoric iron, star steel, golden dragon jade, black steel, red stone, white crystal, heavenly soul jade. All kinds of lights sparkled when the door opened. They almost dazzled Chu Yang's eyes. There are indeed a lot of materials. Chu Yang smacked his lips and sighed. Yin Wu Tian was happy at first. Then, he became puzzled. Why are you sighing if there are a lot of materials? He didn't know that Chu Yang's sigh was really depressed. There were a lot of materials, and they were very pleasing to the eye. But, these materials were outside. They weren't covered. Moreover, a super light bulb was following him closely. How could he steal them? Therefore, Minister Chu sighed again and again. This time, he was at his wit's end. It seems that I have to choose only a few pieces. This guy is really too greedy. He had collected so many medicinal materials. It could be said that he was returning from a rewarding journey. Although these ores were rare, there would be plenty of opportunities in the future. Whether it was the upper 3 heavens or the upper 3 heavens, there were many more ores than here. However, he couldn't take anything away even if he wanted to. This was really a depressing matter. Chu Yang stepped inside. Yin Wu Tian followed closely behind. This time, Minister Chu brought out his real skills and carefully selected the materials. This one. Chu Yang pointed at a piece of golden dragon jade, I will have to trouble King-level Master Yin to take it out for me. All right. Yin Wu-Tian didn't say anything further. He moved the head-sized piece of golden dragon jade to the door. According to legend, golden dragon jade contained a strange power. Generally, this kind of jade was hidden in the depths of the earth. It was rarely seen. Chu Yang couldn't help but think, is this strange power the power of the dragon race from tens of thousands of years ago? However, he couldn't be sure about this. This one is also good. Chu Yang pointed at a fist-sized piece. Heavenly Soul Jade. No problem. Yin Wu-Tian was very straightforward. He was even very happy. It seems that he has taken a fancy to many of the materials here. There is also this one. Chu Yang pointed at a large piece of purple crystal. This purple crystal wasn't small. It was about the size of half a pig's butt. All right. Yin Wu-Tian diligently moved it out. There is also this one. Chu Yang resisted the excitement in his heart. He had already reached the innermost room. Unexpectedly, there was a head-sized piece of red cloud steel inside. This was really a pleasant surprise. Is there anything else? Yin Wu-Tian asked. These are enough to forge a sword. Chu Yang smiled. He patted his forehead and said, I forgot the main material. I will take this piece of star steel. Since King-level Master Yin was still unsatisfied, it seemed that he hadn't reached his bottom line. Chu Yang naturally had to take advantage of this situation. He wouldn't have this kind of opportunity in the future. These. Minister Chu clapped his hands. No problem. I will help you move them out. Yin Wu-Tian grinned. He thought, this Juki is still reserved after all. There are so many materials, but he only wants so little. Although these are enough to forge several swords, but no one would complain about having too many of such good materials. If it were me, I would risk my life to move a few more pieces. The more I take, the more I get in return. Chu Yang smiled and elegantly said, I will compensate you for these things in the future. I have a habit in my life, and that is, I never take advantage of others. So that's how it is. Yin Wu-Tian suddenly realized. He said with admiration, there are very few people like Juki in this world. Chu Yang nodded and smiled. He thought, there is only one person like me in the entire Fort Continent who can steal from others. There is no one else. Yin Wu-Tian huffed and puffed as he carried a few pieces of ore. He wouldn't let Chu Yang reach out his hand no matter what. He played the role of a master. He escorted Chu Yang back to the temporary headquarters. Then, they parted ways outside the headquarters. Chu Yang resolutely bid farewell. Yin Wu-Tian desperately tried to persuade him to stay. But, he couldn't persuade this distinguished guest to stay. He personally called for a carriage to send Juki to forge a sword. Chu Yang sat in the carriage. The coachman cracked his whip, and the carriage slowly started to move. Yin Wu-Tian stood at the entrance of the headquarters. He reluctantly waved his hand. He was very polite. Minister Chu gratefully waved goodbye. You are really a good person. After walking for a while, the pieces of ore disappeared with a whoosh sound. They had already entered the space. People were shouting and horses were neighing in front. A group of people and horses were coming over. It was Prime Minister Diwu. Don't worry about them. We will go out of the city. Chu Yang snorted and arranged for the coachman. Chapter 308. After Minister Chu left the city, he immediately changed his appearance and went in the direction of Jun Lulu's fleet. The musician identity that he had been planning for a long time was finally going to be put to use. The trip to Great Jiao is finally coming to an end. The Lotus Lake was in sight. Chu Yang's figure was like lightning as he passed through the willow forest on the shore. Suddenly, he heard a chuckle and a crisp voice, the big fish pulling the boat, you're back? Chu Yang was startled and turned his head to look. He saw that under the willow tree where he was leaning on before he left, there was a young girl in white. She had delicate features and her eyes were very lively. She looked like an adorable little girl at first glance. Hey, miss, I don't think we've met before. Why are you looking for me? Chu Yang stopped and walked to a distance of 40 feet from the young girl. Humph, I asked you to go and you didn't want to go. I had no choice but to look for you. The young girl in white wrinkled her nose and said, besides, I'm just a flute player. Even if I told you, you wouldn't know. Ah, transverse flute master. I've long heard of your great name. Chu Yang nodded indifferently and said, I didn't expect that the world-famous transverse flute master would be such a little girl who makes people want to spank her. You dare. The young girl pouted coquettishly. She even raised her small white fist and shook it to show off her power. What's the matter? Speak. Chu Yang was very anxious and somewhat impatient. As the world-famous transverse flute master, even if she was really a little girl, she would never be so naive and unaffected. This little girl looked cute, but she was a little pretentious. Perhaps this kind of acting would be able to deal with the vast majority of people in the lower three heavens, including the people of Jianghu. But for a fourth-grade revered sword artist like Chu Yang, who had a powerful divine sense and an agile perception, this kind of trick was still somewhat childish. Hee hee. The young girl smiled and tilted her head to look at him. She said, actually, I don't have any other intentions. I just want to ask. Which side do you belong to? I don't belong to any side. Chu Yang said indifferently. Oh. Then why did you disturb the flute master's appearance? The young girl tilted her head and looked at him with sparkling eyes. She seemed very curious. It's none of your business. Chu Yang bluntly said, if you use these childish tricks to deal with me again, I won't say a word. This girl actually knows some charming techniques. The young girl was startled. She fixed her eyes on him. The naive look on her face gradually disappeared. Her eyes became calm and sharp. The face was still the same face, and the person was still the same person. However, the feeling he gave off was completely different. It was as if a sheep had suddenly been stripped of its sheepskin and turned into a lonely wolf. The first time you saw me, how did you see through it? The girl asked. Chu Yang curled his lips and said, nowadays, young girls are still so lovable and adorable even though they are in their 20s. It's already extinct. Otherwise, it would be a lunatic whose spiritual world is very abnormal. Transverse flute master, are you a lunatic? The girl was stunned. Tell me your true purpose. Chu Yang was somewhat impatient. If she hadn't bumped into her the moment she returned, she wouldn't have even bothered with her. Of course, I will tell you. However, I must first determine whether or not you are one of the Zither Master's people. The girl's expression became serious. Her embarrassment from being seen through by Chu Yang had disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. The Zither Master came with 10 people. I have information on each of them. She fixed her eyes on Chu Yang. They didn't come with you. Moreover, you came here 10 days before the Zither Master arrived. Therefore, I thought that even though you disrupted the flute master's appearance, you might not necessarily be one of the Zither Master's people, right? You are very smart. I am not one of the Zither Master's people, Chu Yang bluntly said. That's good. The girl's expression turned cold as she said, moreover, your martial arts are very high. Especially when I sent people to catch that fish. The hook in the fish's mouth clearly showed that there was only one possibility. That is, you caught the fish underwater and stuffed the hook in. But the fish's scales were not damaged at all. This proves that your light body technique and agility are above the average person's. No one on my ship can match your dexterity and agility. The girl smiled slyly. What do you want to say? Be straightforward. Very simple. I will give you 100,000 taels of silver in exchange for you to do something for me. The girl smiled and gracefully took a step forward to show her perfect figure in front of Chu Yang. She softly said, Can I? No. Chu Yang bluntly refused, I am not interested. 100,000 taels of silver is a lot. Plus a sword, how about it? The girl said unyieldingly, that is the top divine sword in the continent. It has been passed down for more than 1,000 years, autumn water. I am not interested in spring water, let alone autumn water. Why would Chu Yang care about a sword now? Take a piece of iron essence and casually use Calamity sword to cut it. It is much sharper than those so-called famous swords. If Xiao Hong girl gracefully turned around in front of him and looked at him with her limpid eyes. She gently bit her lips and asked shyly, only, if you add Yes. What about me? Chuyang finally became vigilant. He carefully looked at her and said, Miss, you are paying such a big price. What do you want to do? Do you agree or not? The girl asked. I agree. Chuyang decisively said, how can I not be tempted with such a beautiful girl in front of me? A promise. The girl stretched out her jade-like hand. A whip on a fast horse. Chuyang righteously said, as a person of Jiang who, promises are the most important. You should know this. Good. Smack. The two's palms hit each other. The girl felt relieved and smiled. People of Jiang who always kept their promises. People who betrayed their promises were the most despised. She naturally didn't doubt him. She moved closer to Chuyang's ear and whispered, I am paying such a big price because I need you to steal a zither for me. How about it? Steal a zither? Chuyang frowned and suddenly remembered. In his previous life, Jun Lulu, who was supposed to win the title of the world's #1 in the Three Masters Grand Tournament, suddenly lost her precious zither and suffered a crushing defeat. Afterwards, the Flute Master and the Flute Master's clans were razed to the ground by the people of the Dark Bamboo. Not a single chicken or dog was left alive in the entire Flute clan. It turned out that the main culprit was this delicate little girl in front of him. What was even more unexpected was that after his rebirth, this kind of shady business would fall on him. Zither Master's zither? Chuyang asked. Zither Master's zither. The Flute Master nodded. Why? Don't tell me you don't have confidence. Chuyang asked. He couldn't help but feel somewhat strange. The Three Masters Grand Tournament were all arrogant. How could this girl suddenly make such a stupid move? I once listened to Zither Master's zither. In Iron Cloud. The girl snorted and said, I am not as good as her. Even though I am not as good as her, I am stronger than Xiao Ju. So you stole someone else's zither? If that's the case, what's the point even if you win? Chuyang said. Why are you asking so much? You have already agreed. The Flute Master chuckled and said proudly, I only want the title of #1 in the world. I don't want anything else. I am just curious. This kind of thing should be very secretive. Why are you looking for an outsider like me? Chuyang asked in puzzlement. This was what he was really curious about. Was she not afraid of leaking the secret? Because the people from my side. Zither Master also has information. Moreover, the more people from our two clans are involved, the tighter the security is. But you are different. You ruined Xiao Ju's appearance. This is the most advantageous for Zither Master. Therefore, as long as you show up, Zither Master's people will automatically look for you. Moreover, they will be very close to you. This way, you seem to be an outsider, but your chances are much greater than anyone else's. The girl counted with her fingers and sneered, Zither Master has always thought of herself as noble and virtuous. But when she can take advantage of others, that lowly servant girl is also very happy. Your real purpose is just for this kind of false reputation? Chuyang slanted his eyes. So that's how it is. My mother caught a fish to pull the boat, and it actually attracted this kind of thing. The best in the world. The girl said bitterly, even if it is a false reputation, I still want it. The best in the world. You are not worthy. Chuyang spat and said disdainfully. If it were not for Jun Lulu's insistence on winning fair and square, Chuyang would have strangled this reckless girl to death at this moment. You are scolding me? The girl opened her eyes wide. She was somewhat inexplicably angry. You are scolding me? Scolding you? Not only will I scold you, but I will also hit you. Motherfucker, I really want to kill you. Chuyang waved his hand and slapped her. He did not have any tender feelings for the fairer sex. The slap startled the girl. You promised. The girl covered her face and said angrily. He cried out in grief and indignation, as a man, and as a Jianghu man, is your promise, your oath, so worthless? Promise? Promise? Chuyang sneered. What promise? You. The girl was extremely indignant. Even in her dreams, she would not have thought that it would be like this. You just said that a word from a gentleman is as good as a whip. Are you serious? Don't you understand? Minister Chu glared at him and shouted, Even if I don't keep my promise, what can you do about it? Do you know who I am? You go and sue me. You go and spread the news. Fuck. What the hell? He turned around and walked away. He spat and a voice came from afar. It turns out that there are not only idiots among men, but also among women. Not only are they idiots, but they are also brainless. Motherfucker, her chest is like a poached egg, but she still has no brain. This is really fucking strange. The girl was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She realized that she did not ask for his name. She had deliberately dismissed the bodyguards for the sake of secrecy. She had no way to deal with this hooligan. This was not a small matter. Her whole body trembled and she shouted, "Don't let me find out who you are. Otherwise, I will make you wish you were dead." Sob, sob, sob. She squatted on the ground and cried. Chu Yang turned around a few times to make sure that no one was following him. Then, he quickly changed his appearance and sneaked onto Jun Lulu's ship. Chapter 309. Disappeared, disappeared, it should have been half a month. The man trembled as he said, even the monitoring people, also disappeared, bastard. Jing Meng Hun suddenly stood up and kicked the table. He jumped up and cursed angrily, "A bunch of trash. A bunch of bastards." He roared back and forth in the room like a tiger in a cage. His face was ferocious, and his whole body was emitting a vicious aura. He turned his head around and found that the guy was still in front of him. He couldn't help but get angry. He slapped him and cursed, "Do you know that you're disgusting? Get lost." His voice hadn't faded when that man's head flew out. Blood gushed out of his neck. Jing Meng Hun didn't know how to control his strength. He had slapped that man's head off in a fit of rage. Fuck. Jing Meng Hun rushed out like a mad dragon. He cursed along the way, "Investigate. Ferociously investigate. Find him even if you have to dig 3,000 feet into the ground of Great Jiao." Everyone around saw the appearance of the first king-level expert. They trembled with fear and clamored like cicadas in winter. None of them dared to take a breath. "Investigate. Investigate. Investigate." Jing Meng Hun looked up and roared with grief and indignation, "You damned bastard RRR, who the hell are you RRR?" These words were transmitted through his entire body's strength. They were transmitted far away, and could be heard far and near. His voice was extremely sullen, depressed, indignant, and hysterical. It was as if he wanted to vomit blood. Everyone who heard it couldn't help but sigh heavily. What's wrong with this kid? Why is he making such a sound? Even if he's taken to the army's warhorse shed, stripped naked, and fed aphrodisiac to the warhorse, he shouldn't be so indignant, right? Chu Yang carefully put on his makeup in front of the mirror. Jun Lu Jia and Ju Q, one on the left and one on the right, watched as his current appearance changed little by little into another person. Moreover, they couldn't see any flaws from his figure, face, expression, and eyes. They couldn't help but click their tongues in amazement. He looked like a man in his 40s standing in front of him. His eyes were filled with the torment of wind and frost, and his eyes were filled with the vicissitudes of life. The melancholy that flowed out inadvertently, the faint sense of loss and melancholy towards the passing of time when he looked back. Even Jun Lu Yao would think that Jun Qingyang was fighting in front of her if she suddenly saw it. As for the real Jun Qingyang, he immediately disguised himself as a burly man with a curly beard. Then, he got off the boat and disappeared into the sea of people. His mission was just to show his face, and then he would be back for 3 days. In the lower 3 heavens, Jun Qingyang only had yang. So, whether it was true or not, it was true. The 3 of them sat around the table, setting up a feast to celebrate. "Qingyang, I didn't expect you to have such a move." Q held his wine cup and looked at Chu Yang from the corner of his eyes with a smile that was not a smile. He said, "How did you fake the vicissitudes of life between your eyebrows? You should teach me. It's very simple." Chu Yang drank a cup of wine. He smiled bitterly and said, "You only need to say goodbye to your beloved one time, and your beloved one will die in your arms. Then, you will be betrayed by your closest brother, and you will die in the heaven of hatred. Then, you will live a new life with your memories. I guarantee that your eyes will have the vicissitudes of life even if you are a baby." Ha ha ha. Yu laughed until tears came out of his eyes. He swayed back and forth. Die once. Live a new life. Ha ha. You are so funny. Motherfucker, I didn't expect that you would be so good at telling jokes. But, you can really experience the taste of life this way. Chu Yang's serious expression only provoked Yu to laugh again. No one would believe such a thing. For example, you and I, one day, a friend of ours will stand in front of us and say, "Hey, brother, I have been reborn. I remember that you went to beg for food in your previous generation." I don't know how you guys will react, but in any case, I will pick up a physical copy of the world-defying stage Heavens on the spot and slap it over. I will continue to slap it to death. Fuck, you are Chunwei, you are Chu Yang. Yu, this is feasible. Jun Lu smiled sweetly. She looked at Yu with her watery eyes and said, I just don't know. If this is true, who will die in your arms? Cough cough. Yu coughed fiercely. He stood up and said, I will go and get the wine. Jun Lu's eyes revealed a trace of bitterness. When Yu came back with a pot of wine, he met Chu Yang's meaningful gaze. He couldn't help but blush. He laughed and said, What? Why are you looking at me like that? Brother Yu, let me ask you a question. Chu Yang said lightly, with your cultivation, how long can you live? Yu laughed and said, This little one is touching my bottom of the sea again. He held the wine cup and pondered for a while. Then, he said, if you don't suffer a fatal injury and don't die in the hands of others, you should be able to live for hundreds or thousands of years, right? He used an uncertain body aura. Chu Yang smiled and said, if when you die, you still have regrets, do you have a chance to live again to make up for it? Yu looked at him and suddenly became speechless. He pondered for a while and sighed. He said angrily, how can I know what will happen in this life? I won't hide. Chu Yang sighed and also drank a cup of wine. He patted his thigh lightly and said softly, how can I know what will happen in this life? How long will the beauty bloom? Flowers bloom and fade in the deep valley. Who can say that he has no regrets in this life? Yu's whole body trembled. He had just raised the wine cup in the air. The wine suddenly splashed out and dripped onto the table, forming a wine stain. Just like this wine stain. At this moment, it still has the smell of wine. Slowly, it dried up, leaving only a trace. But even after thousands of years, this table can't deny that this wine stain disappeared on its own body. It died. Chu Yang sighed and said, people are like this. Yu lowered his head and remained silent. It seemed as if he was making a difficult decision in his heart. After a long while, he raised his head and poured the remaining half of the wine cup into his mouth. He carefully swallowed it and said in a heavy voice, although I've wasted a lot of it, I've still drunk most of the good wine. My life will not have any regrets. Chu Yang laughed loudly. He picked up the wine pot and poured himself a cup. Then, he drank it and said, it's such a good wine. Even a drop of it is a pity. Yu smiled and said, but Chun who won't waste it. Ah Jian, don't you think so? The last sentence was said to Jun Lu Jian with a face full of saliva. Jun Lu's beautiful face turned red. She was at a loss. The zither master was as shy as a little girl at this moment. She was flustered and said angrily, I don't understand what you're talking about. Two big men are drunk and talking nonsense. You don't know shame. Yes, I admit that I'm drunk. I'm talking nonsense. Chu Yang smiled mischievously. Brother Yu, let me toast you again. This wine is delicious. That's right. Yu said with a smile, this is my wine, how can it not be drunk? Ha ha ha. The two of them raised their cups and drank merrily. Jun Lu finally couldn't stand the two of them. She snorted coquettishly. Then, she covered her face and stood up. She scolded in a flustered and embarrassed manner, I can't stand you, humph. She turned her slender waist and disappeared, leaving behind a burst of fragrant wind. Strange. We were drinking happily. Why did she suddenly cut off her shyness? Chu Yang laughed loudly and said, ha ha, she's afraid that I'll secretly drink tonight. Yu danced with joy and laughed loudly. Suddenly, a shoe flew out from the other side of the veil and hit him squarely on the head. A coquettish hung was faintly heard from inside. The two of them were very happy. The sound of a zither sounded. This time, the zither sound lacked its usual lofty tone. Instead, it became lingering. It seemed as if a man and a woman were deeply in love with each other. It revealed the shyness, joy, and satisfaction of a young girl. It also had a little bit of anticipation, jubilation. Chu Yong laughed loudly. He pushed his cup aside and stood up. He said, "Hey, I don't have your blazing wine. I'm going back to sleep." Dukyu was overjoyed. He pointed at Chu Yong and scolded, "You're such a flippant talker. I don't know when you'll change. Don't spill your wine, I won't spill my wine." Chu Yong smiled and turned around to go out. The sound of the zither changed. It rose with deep gratitude. Chu Yong listened attentively. It was a song called Thanking the Emperor's Grace. The corners of his mouth revealed a meaningful smile. He laughed and said, "I'm not the emperor. But, if you really want to thank me." He winked at Dukyu, "You owe me again. After a while, I'll go to your place. I'll ask you for 3 days." Dukyu raised his eyebrows and said, "If you bring your good wine, I won't be stingy." Of course, of course." Chu Yong laughed and walked away. This time, he really went back to sleep. Dukyu sat quietly in front of the table. He smiled and murmured, "If you still have regrets when you die, will you have the chance to live again to make up for it?" He suddenly shook his head and slowly recited, "Who knows what will happen in this life? When will the beauty bloom? Flowers bloom and fade in the valley. Who says that he has no regrets in this life?" Good poem, good poem. Chu Yong, I really admire you now. After he finished speaking, he stood up and said in a low voice, "The wine here is finished. Can I drink that cup of wine?" He frowned and paced 2 steps. He said, "You have to drink even if you don't want to." Then, he rushed inside. At this moment, a gentle voice sounded, "Is Brother Yu here? Diwu Qingru wants to see you." Dukyu stopped in his tracks. He was stunned like a wooden puppet. After a long while, he spat out his saliva and scolded, "This bastard really came at the wrong time. I was just thinking of drinking wine. I was feeling uncomfortable from holding it in, and he came, puff." A pillow flew out from inside and hit his face. Jun Lulu said in an embarrassed voice, "He came to see you. Why aren't you going?" Dukyu sighed and turned to walk out. He thought to himself, "Diwu Qingru, you better give me a reason. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Step by step, he left with heavy footsteps. I wrote until 5 o'clock in the morning. I edited it 3 times. Finally, I wrote a bit of the charm I wanted. Ha ha. Chapter 310. It was already deep into the night outside. Diwu Qingru stood under the shadow of the willow tree with his hands clasped behind his back. Dukyu's proud and aloof figure jumped from the dimly lit area like a dragon. He turned around and landed in front of Diwu Qingru. Diwu Qingru didn't move, but his eyes sparkled in the night. "What's the matter?" Dukyu said, "You just left, and now you're here. Do you think this is an inn?" "This is Great Jiao. It's my territory." Diwu Qingru said heavily, "Brother Yu, I've already given face to your dark bamboo. But, if I give you face, I also need Brother Yu to give me face." "Give face to you." Dukyu snorted and said, "Who do you think you are?" "I'm Diwu Qingru." Diwu Qingru said calmly and sharply, "Brother Yu, you and I know each other. There's no need to be like this." Dukyu was silent for a moment. Then, he said, "What's the matter? Speak. Don't tell me Brother Yu doesn't want me to go up and sit." Diwu Qingru asked coldly. His eyes suddenly emitted a cold light. He stared at Dukyu and said slowly, "Or, is there something on the ship that's inconvenient for me to see?" "It's very inconvenient." Dukyu stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked at Diwu Qingru without backing down. Then, he said indifferently, "If you miss this moment, you can come whenever you want. But if you insist on going up now, I'll kill you." Dukyu's face turned cold when he heard the words "I'll kill you." His eyes flashed with murderous intent. Diwu Qingru's heart shook. Dukyu was arrogant, unruly, and lawless. But, He also knew the severity of the matter. Yu wouldn't have said such words in the past. But he was obviously abnormal today. Ru knew the pros and cons. So, he naturally wouldn't argue with Yu. He muttered, "May I ask Brother Yu's reason?" "You don't need to know." Yu waved his hand and said ruthlessly, "You only need to know. Go up, and you'll die. These 4 words will do." He smiled coldly. Then, he suddenly opened his arms and looked up to the sky. His body slowly turned in a half-circle. Then, he laughed arrogantly. "Ru, you have 1 billion citizens and tens of millions of soldiers in Great Jiao. But if I want to kill you in Great Jiao, who dares to say no?" "You're crazy," Ru said in a low voice. Ru's momentum had weakened by this point. He knew that Yu wasn't an easy person to get along with. If he had asked him directly, he was afraid that this fellow wouldn't have said anything. Therefore, as soon as he arrived, he put on an aggressive front, turning the grief and indignation in his heart into an obvious imposing manner. Firstly, he wanted to let Yu know that it was understandable that he was in a bad mood. Secondly, he wanted to build momentum for himself and win more benefits. Third, it was to make this trip a little smoother. However, he hadn't expected that Yu had taken some kind of medicine today. He didn't know what kind of medicine Yu had taken, but he didn't fall for his tricks at all. In less than 3 sentences, he actually claimed that he would kill you even in front of 1 billion citizens of the Great Jiao Empire. Such words. This made Ru extremely depressed. However, Huan Zhenju did not dare to challenge Yu because he knew that Yu was a man of his words. If he said he would kill him, then he would really kill him. Even if he had hundreds of millions of soldiers to protect him, Yu might still be able to do it. This was a purely unreasonable person. Even Ru had no way to deal with this kind of Jianghu hooligan. If you tried to reason with him, he would act like a hooligan. If you tried to act like a hooligan, he would be even more of a hooligan than you. Yu is worthy of being called the #1 person in the heavenly layer that cannot be provoked. Ru sighed softly. "I don't know if others can provoke him or not, but the current Yu cannot be provoked." Yu snorted coldly. At this point, the confrontation between the two had come to an end. Ru did not achieve his goal, so he decided to go straight to the point. If it was someone else, even if it was King of Hell Chu, Ru would have continued to probe in another way. But he couldn't do that in front of Yu. Because this person only believed in one principle: say it, say it. This was Yu's principle. He did not have the slightest bit of reasoning with anyone. In the entire heavenly layer, the only person who could make Yu take a step back was the mysterious dark bamboo of the upper 3 heavens. Other than that, even if all the big clans of the upper 3 heavens gathered, Yu could say it, say it. Even if you die. This bastard did not have any scruples at all. "I came here today to ask Brother Yu about something." Ru took a deep breath. His chest seemed to swell with this breath of air. "Say it," Yu said concisely. "Who was the person who fought with you that day?" Ru said slowly. He did not wait for Yu to answer and continued, "Brother Yu, please don't say that he is a member of the Yi clan. You know that I, Ru, do not believe it. Who was the person who fought with me? Why should I tell you?" Yu laughed strangely and said, "Do I need to report to you when I fought with you? What a joke." Ru, a person can be proud and have self-respect, but don't think too highly of yourself. Ru snorted and did not answer his question. Instead, he said heavily, "He stole everything from my treasure house." Yu was stunned. Ru continued, "Especially the medicine house." Yu opened his mouth. Ru sighed and said, "Not a single drop was left for me." Yu's expression became strange. Ru said the last sentence, "It was accumulated for the great ceremony of 10,000 medicines." Fuck. Yu stood there dumbfounded. He was shocked by this news and felt dizzy. He knew Ru's real identity. He also knew how important Ru's medicine house was. He also knew how extensive the implications of this matter were. He really did not expect that Chu Yang had the ability to rob Diwu Qingru. Not even his underwear was left behind. He admitted that Chu Yang was awesome, but he did not expect him to be awesome to this extent. This was really unimaginable. If this matter were to spread out, the upper three heavens would be shaken. How important was the great ceremony of 10,000 medicines? It was related to the future of a super-rich clan. Dukyu was tongue-tied for a long time. Suddenly, he laughed strangely. The more he laughed, the louder he laughed. He held his belly and said, "Waha, this is fucking awesome. Hearing this good news, I am really rejoicing in your misfortune. Haha, you also have such a day. Fuck. This is too awesome. Ha ha ha. Brother you." Diwu Qingru's face showed a look of anger as he shouted. "Haha, I'm sorry, haha. I can't help it." Dukyu wiped the tears from his eyes and said, "This matter is really satisfying. I just want to know who that person is." Diwu Qingru gritted his teeth. He was so angry that he wanted to tear this guy who was rejoicing in his misfortune into pieces. "That person, haha." Dukyu touched his nose and smiled bitterly. "I don't know how to tell you. Why?" Diwu Qingru's entire body shook as he took a step forward. He stepped out from the shadow of the willow tree. Diwu Qingru's entire body exuded an extremely powerful aura at this moment. It seemed as if this step of his could crush the entire night into pieces. "So you have reached this level." Dukyu was startled. He looked at Diwu Qingru deeply. His eyes revealed a blazing fighting spirit. Diwu Qingru's eyes were somewhat anxious. He said, "I just want to know who that person is." Dukyu's mind was racing. He knew that his answer was very important. If he wasn't careful, it could lead to the destruction of the entire dark bamboo. Diwu Qingru might not be scary, but he had a huge force behind him. Moreover, the theft of the medicine warehouse was tantamount to plucking the reverse scale from the body of a dragon. It was easy to imagine how furious this dragon would be. It wouldn't be a big deal if it was only him, but his brothers and sisters behind him. None of them would be spared. Facing the super clans of the upper three heavens, and more than one at that. The strength of the upper three heavens was no match for them, facing a super clans that had fallen into madness. There was only destruction in front of them. Should he tell them about Chu Yang? At this moment, the sound of two zither strings was heard. It penetrated the night sky. Then, the complete sound of the zither resounded. It was the song Hard to Find a Soulmate. Dukyu turned his head. His face was dark under the moonlight. He was full of contemplation. His eyes flickered for a long time. He finally made up his mind. The other party had just done him a big favor. He had removed the knot in his heart and prevented a possible tragedy. How could he turn around and betray the other party? Diwu Qingru had been staring at Dukyu's face. At this moment, he saw that Dukyu's face was somewhat pale. Diwu Qingru's heart skipped a beat. He said coldly, "Brother you?" Dukyu turned his head and exhaled. He turned his face away from the moonlight and said, "I really don't want to say it. Moreover, this is only my guess." "Oh," Diwu Qingru said. "I also don't know his real identity." Dukyu suddenly thought of a wonderful point at this moment. This sentence. "I am skeptical." Diwu Qingru said casually, "There are not many things in this world that brother you doesn't know." "I really don't know." Dukyu glared and said angrily, "Do you think I would lie to you?" Diwu Qingru didn't speak. "When I met him that day, I felt that this person was very powerful. I couldn't help but want to fight." Dukyu said, "So, we fought in the suburbs for 10 days and 10 nights. 10 days and 10 nights. Diwu Qingru murmured. His eyes revealed a contemplative look. To be able to fight with Dukyu for 10 days and 10 nights, this person is very powerful. However, during these 10 days and 10 nights, I couldn't recognize his martial arts. I also couldn't recognize his sword skills. I couldn't recognize his body movements." Dukyu sighed. Diwu Qingru was shocked. Chapter 311. Even Dukyu could not recognize the sword technique. What kind of technique was that? Diwu Qingru did not dare to imagine. However, From his observation, he could clearly feel that Dukyu was telling the truth. This made Diwu Qingru puzzled. Could it be, all of this was true? But how could this be? Dukyu was of course telling the truth. How could it be easy to deceive Diwu Qingru? It was also because he remembered the battle that day that gave him this inspiration. This person's martial power was far inferior to mine, but he relied on his wonderful martial arts to fight me equally. He was only slightly inferior. Dukyu said heavily. Diwu Qingru frowned and pondered. Then he left. Dukyu concluded. Diwu Qingru was so angry that he glared at him. After talking for so long, it was equivalent to saying nothing. I asked him about his identity, but he only smiled and did not say anything. Dukyu said, but I think he is not from upper three heavens or upper three heavens. This was the truth. Diwu Qingru nodded and thought that this was more like it. If he was from upper three heavens or upper three heavens, Dukyu and I would have known him. I have always had a guess, but I don't know if it is accurate. Dukyu's face was serious as he lowered his voice. Diwu Qingru could not help but feel nervous. What? This person, could he be the master of Tribulation Sword? Dukyu frowned and looked at Diwu Qingru. Diwu Qingru's face suddenly changed. After hearing this, he suddenly felt that it was not far from the truth. No origin, unable to recognize the technique, much lower martial power, able to fight evenly with Dukyu. Other than the master of Tribulation Sword, there was no one else. It would be very difficult to find a second possibility. But, if it was really the master of Tribulation Sword, then this matter was really troublesome. According to the ancient legends, when the master of Tribulation Sword appeared, the great clans of upper three heavens would chain. And the master of Tribulation Sword had to suppress the great clans of the older generation in order to support the new clans and enforce the new rules. If this was the case, would the master of Tribulation Sword be the beginning of his suppression of the clan by stealing my medicine? Diwu Qingru frowned and paced back and forth. He looked up at the sky and murmured, if it is really Tribulation Sword Master, he stole the medicine storage. This matter seems a little strange. Hey, Dukyu said in surprise, you also think that it's the Calamity Sword Master? You believe everything I say? According to your description, that should be the case. However, Diwu Qingru thought deeper and said, sword techniques, body techniques, no one can recognize them. His martial power is low, but he can fight against a peak master. Moreover, his first opponent is a big clan. Diwu Qingru heaved a heavy sigh. Then, he said in a low voice, if Brother Yu is truly the master of Calamity Sword, then, we are in big trouble this time. He let out a long sigh and said, all of the upper three are going to change dynasties. Don't tell me you didn't realize how big of a disturbance this would cause. Dukyu blinked and said, I know that the master of Calamity Sword wants to change the current situation. But don't forget that although the big clans were established by the previous master of Calamity Sword, the accumulation of 10,000 years is to deal with the current master of Calamity Sword's overthrow to a large extent. Speaking of stirring up huge waves, it doesn't seem to be enough. Now that the Calamity Sword has appeared, the world has only been shaken twice. Only twice. Diwu Qingru's point of view was obviously different from his. Dukyu, the master of Calamity Sword, has at least 7 more opportunities to grow, but he has only obtained the second fragment, and is already on par with you. He is indeed extraordinary. Dukyu said, however, I am only guessing. I can't rule out this possibility. He might not be the master of Calamity Sword. If you find the wrong person, don't blame me. He thought, fuck you, go find the master of Calamity Sword. What does it have to do with the old man? It's better if both of you are defeated. Dukyu was very proud in his heart. He thought, Chu Yang, I fucking let you down this time, right? Don't say that the old man is disloyal. Little did he know that this guy's lies had actually exposed Minister Chu's true identity. Diwu Qingru nodded deeply and said, I know you are only guessing, but your guess has sounded the alarm for me. This matter must be guarded against. Once he knew that it might be the master of Calamity Sword, Diwu Qingru was no longer angry. On the contrary, he was somewhat frightened and worried. His first reaction was to quickly report this matter. Brother Dukyu, thank you for today. Diwu Qingru said. Diwu Qingru felt that he had made a big mistake. He had always regarded King of Hell Chu and Tai Bu Tian as his biggest opponents. His vision was too narrow, and his mind was too narrow. How could unifying the lower three heavens compare to commanding the entire heavens? My real opponent should be the Master of Calamity sword that appears once every 10,000 years. At this moment, Diwu Qingru's thoughts were like a phoenix's nest at this moment. No matter how the lower three heavens struggle for hegemony is, my next step is to transcend this place and fight with the Master of Calamity sword. Of course, I also want to complete the hegemony of the lower three heavens. After all, that is my wish. I will treat it as a prelude to the battle with the Master of Calamity sword. Well, you're welcome. Dukyu was very puzzled. He didn't know why this guy was thanking him. I didn't say anything, okay? Diwu Qingru smiled slightly. He was about to leave when he stopped and asked, Brother Dukyu, I was listening to the heavenly music on the ship during the day. Why didn't you let me on the ship tonight? I'm very puzzled about this. Dukyu sneered and said, You can only blame yourself for coming at the wrong time. Then, he remembered his own tragic incident. He gritted his teeth and said, I haven't let go of my purity, but I finally thought it through recently. I was about to drink some wine when you came. You disturbed my high spirits, and you still want to get on the ship. In your dreams. High spirits from drinking wine? Diwu Qingru scratched his head in confusion. Can't I drink a cup with you? Fuck. Dukyu was unable to restrain his anger. Women are like wine, do you understand? Diwu Qingru suddenly understood. He couldn't help but blush. He coughed twice and said, Since that's the case. Brother Dukyu, you enjoy the wine. I'll take my leave now. He felt relieved. So this guy was about to enter the harbor when I called him out and interrupted something. No wonder he looked like he had taken an aphrodisiac. Lecture. Dukyu snorted and looked at the sky. He ignored him. Diwu Qingru turned around and left. Dukyu snorted as he watched Diwu Qingru walk away. He turned around and flew onto the ship like an eagle. Then, he stealthily came to the door of a room. He coughed and calmed himself down. Then, he gently knocked on the door. The door opened with a creak. Dukyu's face lit up with joy. He stepped inside. Suddenly, an ice-cold face stopped him. What are you doing here? Dukyu was startled. He stammered, drink that wine. What wine? Jun Lulu said angrily. This. Dukyu was a little confused. What's going on? In the past, Alu had always been gentle and soft when she spoke to him. Why did she change so much? He blinked and said, Then, I'll go in and talk. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked inside. Bang! The door slammed shut. His nose was almost flattened. He hastily dodged and escaped. Jun Lulu's hateful voice came from inside. Wine? You want to drink? How can it be so cheap? Humph. You're the wine. Stinky man. None of you are good. Dukyu was at a loss. He stood in front of the door and suddenly froze. Ah ha ha ha. Chu Yang, who had been secretly watching from the side, couldn't help but laugh. He slapped the deck of the ship. He laughed until his stomach hurt. What are you laughing at? Dukyu asked angrily. The tent under his crotch had unknowingly calmed down. I'm laughing at you. You're too. Chu Yang laughed until his whole body trembled. Too damn cute. Dukyu snorted and said angrily, I'm here to drink. What are you doing here? I'm here to see if you can drink. Sure enough, you can't drink. Chu Yang laughed. You're not manly at all. You can't even drink wine. Dukyu said angrily, you can't even go in. How can I drink? Chu Yang laughed. He walked a few steps forward and patted his shoulder. He was overjoyed and said, You can't be like this. Come, I'll teach you a few moves to deal with women. Dukyu was truly in the wrong. His mistake was that he had regarded Jun Lulu as something that belonged to him. He felt very confident. Well, if a man thought like this, the woman would definitely make him suffer a little no matter how willing she was. Am I someone you can summon at your beck and call? Jun Lulu had been deeply in love with him for several years. How could Dukyu not know? He just felt that he wasn't ready to take on this responsibility. Moreover, Dukyu also had concerns. His cultivation level wasn't low. His lifespan was at least 1,000 years. But Jun Lulu was only a little stronger than an ordinary woman. Her lifespan was more than 100 years. 200 years would be the limit. What would he do at that time? Would he continue to face the rest of the long road alone? This was his biggest concern. However, it was Chu Yang who reminded him of his biggest concern. You can live for 1,000 years. What about her? Her life is only a short time. Don't tell me you won't even give her the happiness she craves in this short time. Wouldn't you be crueler than time? Life is short. Why should you suppress yourself? So, Dukyu understood. So, he wanted to make up for it. So, he wanted to drink wine. He had originally thought that he was very confident that he would be able to capture her easily, but now, he was not allowed to drink this wine. The two of them went to Chu Yang's room. They touched the wine cups and talked. From time to time, the two of them laughed together. It made people's hair stand on end. In the end, Dukyu proudly said that he had tricked Diwu Qingru today. He felt a sense of accomplishment. Dukyu's face was full of pride when he talked about tricking Diwu Qingru. Chu Yang was dumbstruck. Chapter 312. How is it? Isn't my idea brilliant? Dukyu had long forgotten the unhappiness of being rejected outside the door. He laughed proudly. Brilliant. It's really brilliant. Chu Yang said with a smile. You should rejoice. I can't beat you now. If I could beat you, I would have killed you right now. Don't worry. You can rest easy after this matter is related to the illusory tribulation sword master. Dukyu patted Chu Yang's shoulder and said, besides, the tribulation sword master will have a bloody battle with the big clans sooner or later. It's no big deal. It's indeed ingenious. Chu Yang gritted his teeth in his heart. Suddenly, he realized something and said in surprise, why will there be a bloody battle with the big clans sooner or later? I don't understand. Tribulation overturning the heavens. Dukyu laughed and said, the big clans of the upper three heavens are the target of the tribulation sword master. Only by overturning the original big clans can a new order be established. This is the destiny of the tribulation sword master. Destiny. Chu Yang muttered, destiny? The battle will start tomorrow. Dukyu said, we will leave here in about 3 days. Are you coming back with us or? Why wouldn't I want to go back with you? It's a pity that I haven't achieved my main goal here. Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said, I still have to stay here for a while to do some things. All right. Dukyu said deeply, geniuses die young easily. You have to be careful. Chu Yang was speechless. The next day, the sun rose. The golden sunlight shone on the sparkling lake. The breeze rippled the surface of the lake, and the lake rose and fell slightly. It was quiet. Even the water birds on the shore seemed to have felt something. They were quiet and didn't dare to make a sound. Amidst the silence, the sound of a drum suddenly rang out. Dong. This sound seemed to have started from the bottom of people's hearts. It spread out and resounded through the cloud. Suddenly, the entire sky and earth were filled with intense drumbeat. The monotonous but intense drumbeats seemed to be able to arouse the most primitive blood in people's hearts. Everyone's blood suddenly surged and their blood boiled. The clouds are the flags, the wind is the trumpet, the sky is the battlefield, the sun is the lamp. The gods are the soldiers, the demons are the generals, come to war. Today, a legend will be born. Today, he would witness the birth of a legend. On the high platform, there was a burly man who was a foot tall. He was dressed in a red robe and looked like a god. He stood up and held the drumsticks with both hands. Then, like raindrops, he began to beat the gigantic drum. Just when the atmosphere was at its climax, he suddenly stopped and stood still like a mountain. While the drumbeats between the heavens and the earth seemed to be still going on, a strand of intense flute music suddenly pierced through the air. The sound was sharp and loud, as if a dormant goshawk had suddenly soared into the sky. Whoosh! The entire Lotus Lake area, all the people who supported the transverse flute master, suddenly cheered like crazy. Amidst the cheers of the crowd, a whimpering sound of a flute drifted through the air. It was as if the widows of the soldiers on the battlefield were weeping softly with their hands covering their mouths as they celebrated their victory. Although the cheers were loud, they could not suppress this soft whimper and the grief that seeped into the marrow. The crowd became even more excited, and cheers rose one after another. However, the sound of the flute and the sound of the flute intertwined with each other and soared into the sky, not moving at all. One was loud and clear, while the other was low and whimpering. But they were neck and neck. Just when the crowd was at its boiling point, zheng, the sound of a zither was like the sound of ice and snow falling from the heavens, and suddenly rang out without any warning. The crowd's emotions were suddenly suppressed by the sound of the zither, and suddenly stagnated. Zheng zheng. The sound of the zither rang out again, and ice splashed and jade fell. The cheers gradually subsided, and everyone closed their mouths and pricked up their ears. Zheng zheng. The sound of the zither finally rang out continuously, and it was getting louder and louder. It was as if an immortal had descended from the heavens, and after a moment of surprise, it floated up, and once again soared into the sky, as if it wanted to return to the heaven. The entire lotus lake was dead silent. Only the sounds of the zither, flute, and flute were rippling in the air. The three sounds seemed to have merged together, but if one listened carefully, they were different. The flute and flute sounds had been competing with each other, and were also attacking the zither sounds. However, the zither sounds were indifferent, and carried a sense of superiority, as if it was looking down on all living things. It disdained to compete with anyone, but it stood alone, like the bright moon in the vast sky, quietly hanging high up. The celestial beauty was gentle, and did not move, but had a myriad of manners. The zither sounds only appeared for a moment, and then disappeared. Only the flute sounds and other sounds were left in the air. In the cabin, Jun Lulu faintly sighed. Duke Yu stood behind the gauze with his hands clasped behind his back, and asked, "What's wrong?" Chu Yang stood alone on the other side. His figure was bleak. It seemed that he was out of tune with this lively atmosphere. It was as if he was the only one who was sober when everyone was drunk. He heard Jun Lulu's sigh and Duke Yu's question, and couldn't help but laugh, and replied in place of Jun Lulu's sigh, "Such an opponent is unworthy of being an enemy." Jun Lulu calmly smiled and said, "Qing Yang is right." She stood up in front of the zither, and looked through the gauze at the sparkling surface of the lake. Then, she insipidly said, "If I had met Minister Chu in Iron Cloud, perhaps I would have been evenly matched. If I had played the zither yesterday, perhaps I would have been lucky enough to win. But if I were to participate in this competition with my current musical cultivation, it would have been a blasphemy to my zither." Jun Lulu smiled bitterly, and gently shook her head. Her posture was elegant, and she revealed an air of arrogance. "Not necessarily. It's hard to say who will win or lose." Duke Yu took the lead and said, "Did you see? The first king-level master of Golden Horse Riders Department, Jing Meng Hun, has entered the flute master's boat. And Diwu Qing Ru is on the flute master's boat today. So what? So what? Diwu Qing Ru's rallying power in Great Jiao is comparable to Kong Lai Yang. He's the best candidate." Duke Yu's eyes flashed with coldness. "He's on the flute master's boat, and has invisibly created momentum for the flute master. It doesn't matter, I'm no longer in the mood." Jun Lulu smiled indifferently. "I'm suddenly dispirited about the outcome of this competition. I don't want to participate anymore. I'm already worthy of master's nurturing." Jun Lulu said, "There's no harm in withdrawing from the heavenly sound." Chu Yang insipidly smiled and said, "It's unforgivable to blaspheme the zither's soul if you drag it until the final battle." Jun Lulu's eyes lit up. The spectators on the high platform were about to announce the start of the competition with a solemn face. They were about to introduce the Three Masters competition, when suddenly, a wisp of zither music suddenly jumped out. It seemed as if a ray of sunlight had jumped out from the sea at dawn, and blossomed into a myriad of multicolored light. They couldn't help but be stunned. What's going on? The competition hasn't started yet, but the zither master is already in such a situation. This has never happened in the previous competitions of the Three Masters competition. What does the zither master want to do? Soon after, The zither music started to sound in a neither fast nor slow manner. It seemed as if a king was steadily walking towards the coronation throne with his chest puffed out and his head held high. Everyone was silent. Diwu Qingru had been talking to the flute master, but he couldn't help but stop talking and calmly listen. The zither music resolutely moved forward. Everyone closed their eyes and seemed to see the king treading on the blue dome of heaven and earth with an indomitable spirit. Finally, he arrived in front of the dragon throne. It paused. Then, the zither music suddenly became impassioned. The clanging sound revealed an aura of supremacy and the king of the world. It seemed as if the king was slowly turning around to face the common people of the world. His eyes were calm, but he was disdainfully looking down on the world. Then, he slowly sat down. He sat on the throne. The zither music fiercely rose. It was glorious and solemn. It seemed as if all the weapons of war in the world had calmed down at this moment. The king descends to the world. All the land under the heavens belongs to the king. All the people on the shores of the land are the king's subject. The dust has settled. The zither music fell. The blue dome of heaven was silent. There were hundreds of thousands of people on the Lotus Lake, but there was no sound at all. This level of zither music had already exceeded everyone's imagination. It seemed as if they were watching a king rise from his humble beginnings with the zither music. He waved his army and crazily fought against the world. He galloped across the battlefield and laughed as he unified the four seas. He raised his eyes to look at the world. The universe is in his heart. Only I am the king of the world. King. This is a real king. Diwu Qingru sighed softly. His eyes revealed a look of fascination. Others might feel lighter, but Diwu Qingru's lifelong desire was to sweep the universe and unify the world. When he heard this zither music, he couldn't help but feel his heart waver. He let out a long sigh and murmured, I seem to have seen a path full of killing, but ultimately successful, the path of a king. On the side, Transverse Flute Master's eyes flashed with a trace of intense jealousy. A feeling of anger and admiration swept through her heart in a flash. She is stronger than you. Diwu Qingru looked at Transverse Flute Master and calmly said, she is also stronger than him. The him he was referring to was naturally the flute master. The jade flute in Transverse Flute Master's hand quietly dropped. She powerlessly turned her head and looked at Diwu Qingru. Her cherry lips trembled. She was full of disappointment as she said, what does the Prime Minister want to know? Diwu Qingru faintly smiled. He took out a portrait and asked softly, may I ask if you have seen this person? Transverse Flute Master's body trembled. Her eyes revealed a look of shame and anger. She clenched her teeth and fiercely said, I can recognize his bones even if he turns into ashes. That bastard. It was the man with the big fish pulling the boat. Diwu Qingru's eyes revealed a smile. On Transverse Flute Master's boat, Dukyu stood upright. His chest was suddenly filled with heroism. He felt that his entire soul was brimming with pride. Because the owner of this zither music was his lover. Suddenly, Dukyu faced the sky and laughed. He faced the sky and let out a long roar. With one roar, the wind and clouds in the vast sky were turbulent. The roar surged. Golden stones fell down, tearing apart the white clouds in the vast sky and revealing the clear blue sky. Delightful. Dukyu let out a long and loud shout, the ruler of the 8 desolations is revered, and I'm the king of 10,000 rivers and mountains. Who dares not to obey? Chapter 313. By the time everyone regained their senses, they found that the zither master's ship had already quietly retreated, leaving behind a large empty space. This. Miss Jun. Miss Jun. The witness was dumbfounded. He repeatedly called out and chased after her. Jun Lulu's calm voice came from the bow of the ship. It was somewhat indifferent, I'm sorry. The zither master will withdraw from this grand gathering of the 3 masters. The big ship slowly sailed away. That person was dumbstruck. Withdraw, withdraw? What's the point of continuing? Diwu Qingru snorted and said, it's clear who will win and who will lose. What's the use of having witnesses like you? As for the grand gathering of the 3 masters, It's intolerably vulgar to provoke hundreds of thousands of secular people to gather here. What's the difference between this and the competition for the top courtesan of a brothel? The witnesses were speechless. They didn't dare to reply to the most powerful person of Great Jiao. She's just pretending to be aloof. The transverse flute master coldly snorted. Oh! Don't tell me you think that your reputation as the transverse flute master is stronger than hers. Diwu Qingru was somewhat dissatisfied. He could faintly sense the zither master's attitude. She disdains to participate in this level of competition. So she left. But she has already left. Yet, you're still chirping. You don't have any self-awareness. You're not on the same level. Why are you not convinced? I don't dare. She is indeed stronger than me. The transverse flute master spoke the truth, but her attitude is too aloof. It makes people dislike her. You'll be the same if you reach such a height. Diwu Qingru sighed slightly. This is another realm, it's lonely at the top. The grand gathering of the three masters has ended without any result since the zither master has left. The transverse flute master bitterly bit her lips. She and you are not in the same world. Diwu Qingru insipidly said, you should rejoice. The transverse flute master sighed and said, Prime Minister, you must have come here to instruct me, right? She naturally understood Diwu Qingru's meaning. It's better to end like this than to end after everyone's evaluation. At least I didn't lose on the surface. But in my heart, I want to know about this person. Diwu Qingru pointed at the portrait on the table. Tell me everything you know, little by little. Tell me everything, big or small. His voice contained an order that could not be disobeyed. This person. I don't know much about him. I only came to know about him when he destroyed the flute master's appearance. From that time onwards, I began to understand him. Only then did I know that this person had been staying on this lotus lake for a long time. The transverse flute master recalled for a moment before she slowly explained. I have stayed on the lotus lake for a long time. Diwu Qingru gently rubbed his temples. His eyes were as deep as the sea. The transverse flute master said slowly. Diwu Qingru continued to calculate, speculate, overturn, and reconstruct in his heart. In that instant, he had already thought of dozens of possibilities, and then eliminated one of them in his mind. By the time the zither master finished speaking, Diwu Qingru had already drawn 2 lines in his heart. One clue: if this person is the master of Calamity Sword, then, what is his purpose of coming here? Why did he stay at the Lotus Lake for so long? This person, after appearing at Lotus Lake to fight with Jukyu, returned to this place. There must be a reason for this. Lotus Lake, could it be that there was something about it that attracted him? Another line of thought: what would happen if he wasn't the master of the Calamity Sword? Who could it be? Could it be King of Hell Chu or one of King of Hell Chu's people? But no matter which possibility it is, this Lotus Lake should be the main point. Diwu Qingru's heart was fiercely pondering, but his face was calm. The transverse flute master looked at Diwu Qingru with apprehension after she had finished speaking. She didn't dare to make any noise for fear of disturbing Diwu Qingru's train of thought. Diwu Qingru was like a towering mountain in the transverse flute master's eyes. He could crush her body and crush her bones with one move. Forget it. Diwu Qingru opened his eyes and said, is there anything else? That's all. The transverse flute master lowered her head and said. She had told him everything, including her attempt to make that person steal the zither. She didn't want to talk about such a shameful matter, but she realized that she couldn't hide anything under Diwu Qingru's gaze. He had no choice but to blurt it all out. Well, I'll give you some advice since you're quite frank. Diwu Qingru slowly said, if you want to protect your life, immediately change your name and leave the prefecture. Go as far as you can in the shortest time. The more remote, the better. Why? The transverse flute master's complexion turned deathly pale. Her mind went blank in an instant. She was a girl from a musical family. She was lucky enough to participate in the gathering of the 3 masters. So, she made up her mind to become famous at all costs. She wanted to stay in the prefecture and have the opportunity to associate with influential people. She wanted to be the center of attention. She had paid a lot for this as a girl in addition to her own efforts. Changing her name and leaving the prefecture, wouldn't that mean that her life's work would be wasted? There's no reason. Diwu Qingru calmly said, "This is your own disaster. So, you have to bear it. You won't be able to protect your life if you don't leave. Even now, it's hard to say whether you'll be able to protect yourself." Diwu Qingru stood up and walked out after he finished speaking. "Prime Minister, please show me the way." The transverse flute master immediately knelt down. "There are some people you can't afford to offend," Diwu Qingru said. "Even if it's just an idea that hasn't been implemented, it's a crime that must be killed in the eyes of some people." "Prime Minister, are you talking about the matter of stealing the zither?" the transverse flute master asked with a pale complexion. "Yes," Diwu Qingru slowly said, "there are some people you can't afford to offend. The most important thing in Jianghu is to have a good eye. If you provoke someone you shouldn't provoke, you won't have a good end." Diwu Qingru disembarked from the boat after he finished speaking. The transverse flute master took 2 steps back in a daze. Then, she suddenly fell down on a chair. Her whole body was powerless. It seemed that she couldn't stand up. She had never imagined that the zither master, who was also one of the 3 masters, was a super force that she couldn't even imagine. Is there such a big gap between people? Diwu Qingru had just disembarked from the boat when he saw Dukyu walking towards him. He sighed in his heart. Then, he went forward to greet him. "Brother, you didn't leave. I still have something to do." Dukyu insipidly said, "It has nothing to do with you. Nothing happened, right?" Diwu Qingru insipidly said. "Her intentions are punishable." Dukyu stopped his footsteps. He suddenly became silent and said, "Do you want to protect her?" "No." Diwu Qingru said, "I just asked her a few things. That can be considered as helping me. But, I won't stop Brother Yu if you want to kill her. In the eyes of people like them, the death of 1,000 people like the transverse flute master was insignificant. It was just a matter of a few words." Dukyu snorted and said, "Diwu Qingru, I won't kill her. She's just a flute player. There's no harm in giving you face. But one of our people from Bamboo will be staying here for a while." "You mean to say that you want me to take care of her?" Diwu Qingru suddenly smiled. "Does Bamboo need me to take care of her?" Dukyu smiled. "This is Great Jiao. Diwu Qingru's territory. You've said these words before." Diwu Qingru also gave a rare laugh. Then, a person arrived in front of him. "His name is Jun Qingyang." Dukyu casually said, "Brother Diwu, please make things convenient for him." "Ha ha." Diwu Qingru also laughed. He glanced at this Jun Qingyang. He was about 40 years old. His hair was a bit weather-beaten. His eyes, hands, eyes, and skin color made it clear that this person had experienced some hardships. Some bitterness. Even the turbidity in his eyes could give rise to a feeling of life. This person's position in Bamboo must not be low. Diwu Qingru politely nodded as this thought arose in his mind. But, he had a strange feeling in his heart. This person seems very familiar. "Brother Jun. Have we met before?" Diwu Qingru asked cautiously. "Prime Minister Diwu, this is the first time I've come to lower 3 heavens." Jun Qingyang's voice was very strange. It sounded like the friction of metal. No wonder. So, it's king-level Master Jun. Diwu Qingru suddenly felt relieved. Jun Qingyang was an important person in Bamboo. He was a king-level master. This person had been seriously injured when he was young. His throat had been cut. He had survived, but his vocal tract had been damaged. His voice had been very strange after his injury had healed. It had made people's hair stand on end. He was known as the king-level master of the underworld of lower 3 heavens. Diwu Qingru knew this person, but he had never seen him. So, he recognized him when he heard this voice. That was because one could not find a second person with such a voice in the world. "Prime Minister can call me Ghost Voice." Jun Qingyang smiled and said, "People have been calling me that for decades." "Ha ha." Diwu Qingru laughed. But, the doubt in his heart had disappeared. He said, "King-level Master Jun has come here personally. What else does he need to take care of?" He is injured. His cultivation is somewhat damaged. Dukyu frowned and said, so. Fifth ghost. Brother Yu, don't worry. Diwu Qingru said straightforwardly, I don't dare to boast about other things. But if someone in Great Jiao were to hurt my guest, then I would become a joke. Dukyu smiled meaningfully, I believe these words. Jun Qingyang also smiled gently. His eyes flickered as he said, then, I will have to trouble Prime Minister. I will go to Lotus Lake to try my luck. I will see if I can find the knotted lotus root. If I can't find it, then I will leave the prefecture and look for it elsewhere, haha. Diwu Qingru understood. The knotted lotus root had a well-known property, it could heal injuries to the voice. It seemed that this king-level master ghost voice cared a lot about his own voice even though he didn't say it. No harm. I will send people to assist you. Diwu Qingru smiled. Chapter 314. Dukyu felt relieved and left. He believed that even if this Jun Qingyang had offended Diwu Qingru would turn a blind eye and tolerate him as long as he didn't reveal his true identity. Chu Yang would have to deal with everything by himself in the future. Dukyu didn't know what kind of ideas this mysterious Minister Chu had in mind. However, Dukyu was very confident in his heart. Chu Yang and I have been repaying each other's favors up until now. Up until now, they had basically done each other a favor and didn't owe each other anything. He will come to upper three heavens or upper three heavens sooner or later if he survives and defeats Diwu Qingru. Whether he becomes an enemy or a friend depends on the situation. If he becomes an enemy, it will be very interesting to have such an opponent. If he becomes a friend, he should be a good friend. But if he can't defeat Diwu Qingru, he will be killed by Diwu Qingru. Then, I don't need to worry about a dead man. Therefore, he left in a relaxed and confident manner. Diwu Qingru also went back. He tried his best to invite Jun Qingyang to stay at the Prime Minister's residence, but the other party refused. He had no choice but to arrange for Jing Menghun and the others to keep an eye on him. He also looked for many fishermen to help him find the lotus roots. The crowd at Lotus Lake gradually dispersed. The people of the transverse flute master had escaped death. So, they left very quickly. However, too many people were left behind in the land of shadows. Almost all the experts of the Golden Horse Riders department had gathered here. Diwu Qingru had strictly ordered, the most important thing is this Lotus Lake. You must keep an eye on this place after the music ends and the people disperse. Therefore, Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian were paying attention to this aspect. After Minister Chu had emptied their headquarters, he had come into contact with these two dear friends again after a day had passed since he had last seen them. However, they didn't know each other. Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian weren't in a good mood. They greeted Chu Yang, and saw that he was also in a bad mood. So, the three of them started to think about their own matters. Jing Menghun was thinking, how can we find that Duke? How can we make up for the loss? Du Shaqing's wife and children are missing. I haven't dared to tell Diwu Qingru how to deal with them. Yin Wutian was also thinking about these things. But, he had another thought in his heart, is it Cheng Yun he who crippled my brother? Could it be? If that was the case, what should he do? How was he going to obtain evidence? However, what Chu Yang was thinking was, motherfucker, Diwu Qingru's men have sealed off this entire Lotus Lake. If I go down to find the third fragment of the Calamity Sword, I will have to fight with that monster. It's inevitable that there will be movements on the water surface. What should I do? Even if they found him, how could they escape? When all the objectives were completed, it was about time for him to be exposed. When the time comes, he would have to travel from Great Jiao to Iron Cloud. How would he be able to return safely? Diwu Qingru should be planning to mobilize his troops by now. How will this war go? Chu Yang's heart was also in a mess. He found a secluded place and lay down in the grass with his hands behind his head. There was a tender green reed pipe in his mouth, and he was tossing it up and down, but his eyes were full of contemplation as he looked at the starry sky. He did not move for a long time. Just this afternoon, he felt that his bottleneck had loosened, and the summoning of the calamity sword at the center of the lake was becoming clearer and clearer. Everything was because of a single sentence from a man and a woman. Dukyu, Jun Lulu. When Jun Lulu left, she proudly played the zither. This made Chu Yang truly feel a kind of realm. When one is at the top, it's lonely at the top. This was a kind of loneliness of an expert of another realm. When other people listened to the zither, they listened to the endless glory of a king ascending to the throne. But Chu Yang heard the loneliness of a king who swept the world, and looked around at the world without a rival. The helplessness of having no choice but to let go of his weapons. The founding of a nation belonged to war. Jun Lulu might not be able to reach the peak of martial arts in this lifetime, but she had already reached the peak of perfection in terms of music. It was at the moment when she reached the peak that the G-mo she released was the most moving. Chu Yang let go of her desire. Dukyu untied the knot in her heart. Therefore, she became a phoenix overnight, and turned from a cocoon into a butterfly. That was a kind of breakthrough. Moreover, it was a kind of ultimate breakthrough. And Chu Yang vaguely grasped the state of mind of this breakthrough at that moment. There was another sentence that Dukyu had said at the end. The ruler of the 8 wastelands is revered, and I am the king of thousands of rivers and mountains. Who dares not to obey? This sentence was bold and domineering, and it made Chu Yang fascinated. Yes. It was this kind of domineering aura that made Chu Yang's heart move, as if he had grasped something. People who learned martial arts generally had bad tempers. Especially people of Jianghu. Firstly, martial artists had to work harder than ordinary people. They also had to pay a lot more in order to achieve these achievements. If a martial artist's lifetime of sweat was accumulated together, it would be enough for many people to take a bath at the same time. Then, since it's like this, if I pay, I'm the strong one. If you don't pay, you're the weak one. Then, why should I tolerate you? Just because you don't work hard? What kind of logic is this? Moreover, there was a basic rule in the martial arts of the heavenly layer continent: take with a sharp mind, press forward with indomitable will. In other words, no matter what difficulties a martial artist faced, he could not shrink back. Although this sentence was about the state of mind, most people's daily life was also like this. Therefore, the so-called Jianghu had become a place where people fought fiercely. This was not without reason. However, as a martial artist, especially a high-level martial artist, there was one thing that he could not lack. That was domineering aura, extreme self-confidence. And this point had been completely exposed by Dukyu. This kind of spirit that could defeat all the heroes in the world with a single punch made Chu Yang extremely shocked. This was the demeanor of a strong martial artist. Chu Yang's heart suddenly trembled, and his mental state also trembled. Then, unknowingly, he felt the energy in his body surging like a tide, wave after wave uncontrollably. In the space of consciousness, the sword spirit stirred, and a huge amount of medicinal energy surged out. Chu Yang's body, which was lying flat, suddenly stretched out slowly. His posture did not change at all, but if others saw him now, they would definitely be envious of his comfort. Moreover, his body floated up as if it was weightless. His body exuded a rich aura of life. The grass beneath him straightened up, and his entire body seemed to be floating on top of the tender little grass. Unexpectedly, it didn't bend down in the slightest. The medicinal energy in his meridians entered his dantian like a whale sucking in water. The tribulation sword in his dantian swallowed and spat, and turned into pure energy. Then, it was sent out again, with a strange spiraling power. The spirit energy was like a river, and like 10,000 horses galloping, it attacked the bottleneck. Boom! Boom! The continuous attacks made Chu Yang's body tremble slightly, but he did not feel anything now. His entire mind was focused on his mind. He was indifferent to everything that was happening outside. The spirit energy above the lotus lake suddenly gathered invisibly, and then rushed down. It formed a small whirlwind above his body, and then rushed into his body through his pores and nostrils. The night was still quiet. Yin Wu Tian and Jing Menghun sighed, and frowned. Both of them had a feeling that it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens to find that Juki again. Besides, what can we do even if we find him? His divine power is comparable to Duke Yu's. So, what can we do even if we risk our lives? Unless we are in a special environment where we can't escape. Then, all the experts of the Golden Horse Riders Department will risk their lives to kill him. They will use their advantage in numbers to kill him. That's the only way to kill him. Moreover, they will have to pay a heavy and unbearable price. Apart from that, the Golden Horse Riders Department has no chance of dealing with such a super expert. After all, the Golden Horse Riders Department is very strong, but it is only a secular force that assists Wang Zhuo. They can deal with an ordinary army like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. But they are not enough to deal with a super expert. The two of them sat facing each other and did not speak. Suddenly, Jing Menghun raised his eyebrows. What's that sound? How can there be such a powerful aura? Yin Wu Tian's ears trembled, and he said disapprovingly, King-level Master Jun is practicing. And he is close to a breakthrough. Jing Menghun tilted his ears and paused for a moment. He felt the density of the spirit energy in the sky and the situation of the vortex. After a long time, he smiled and said, the so-called king-level master of the three heavens is nothing more than this. It's just SOSO, Yin Wu Tian snorted disdainfully. They had assumed that the opposite party was a high-grade king-level master. But the opposite party's aura had only reached the level of a low-grade king-level master. So, they naturally didn't think much of it. But they didn't know that the person who was practicing was only a 4th-grade revered sword artist. He was several grades lower than the low-grade king-level master they had assumed. They wouldn't have felt disdain if they had known that the opposite party was practicing with the cultivation of a low-grade revered sword artist. Instead, they would have been shocked. There was a weak fluctuation. Then, there seemed to be an invisible ripple in the space, and it spread in all directions. He broke through. Yin Wu Tian's ears trembled a few times. He was bored to death. I don't know how many years this guy has been stuck in this bottleneck, but he has broken through at this time. It's a show of strength for us to show off. The corners of Jing Menghun's mouth twitched as he said, but he didn't expect that this demonstration would expose his level of idiocy. Ha! Yin Wu Tian laughed hollowly. It was purely to deal with Jing Menghun's joke. You seem to have something on your mind these days. Jing Menghun frowned as he looked at his sworn brother. He could clearly feel that something was wrong from the other party's demeanor. It's nothing. Yin Wu Tian pondered gloomily for a long time. Then, he suddenly said in a low voice, Big brother, what do you think will happen if I kill Cheng Yunhe? Chapter 315. I've been thinking about it for a long time. Yin Wu Tian snorted. His expression became bleak. This matter. I want to do it. Shut up. Jing Menghun said sternly. You don't want to live anymore. Do you know who Cheng Yunhe is? Kill him. How can you say that? My brother's legs are related to that old thief Cheng Yunhe. Yin Wu Tian clenched his teeth. You're crazy. That Yi Gong is clearly a spy. Jing Menghun said angrily. Do you believe what he says? Yi Gong is obviously not a good person. But it doesn't mean that his knowledge is false. Yin Wu Tian snorted and said, We have studied my brother's injuries many times. Finally, we unanimously concluded that this is a strange martial art that directly damages the meridians. Moreover, it is very sharp. But Yi Gong could see at a glance that this is an invisible sword energy. Yin Wu Tian said, This is absolutely not false. Even if it is not false, what does it have to do with Cheng Yunhe? He is just a weak scholar. Jing Menghun panicked. If he couldn't dispel Yin Wu Tian's thoughts, and if he really killed Cheng Yunhe, then it would be over. Diwu Qingru valued Cheng Yunhe. How could he allow Yin Wu Tian to kill Cheng Yunhe? Only he has a chance. Yin Wu Tian was indifferent. Even if he didn't do it, he must have known about it. His eyes revealed a look of hatred. Don't tell me that my brother's legs were crippled in vain. Old fourth. Jing Menghun shouted sternly in a low voice. Then, he said in a low voice, Let this matter rot in your heart. Yin Wu Tian immediately realized that Jing Menghun had some doubts in his heart when he heard these words. Let it rot in your heart. Yin Wu Tian sneered mischievously. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he said in a low voice, "But, that's my elder brother." "Ah, my elder brother from the same mother, we share the same blood." Jing Menghun was speechless for a while. He stared blankly at Yin Wu Tian. They looked at each other in a daze, but didn't speak. The tent became deathly silent. When Diwu Qingru returned to the Prime Minister's manor, the first thing he did was to write a letter. Then, he clapped his hands, and the wall behind him started to twist and squirm. It seemed as if there was a living creature. After a long time, a strange figure separated from the inside. It was the figure of a flying bird, extremely illusory. Diwu Qingru rolled up the letter. Then, he rubbed his hands together and turned it into a small ball. Then, he stuffed it into the mouth of the illusory bird. The illusory bird immediately began to retreat. When it came into contact with the wall, the space suddenly distorted and rippled, and then slowly returned to normal. In the blink of an eye, the strange bird boat disappeared. Diwu Qingru sat quietly on his chair. His eyes flashed with a sharp light. No one knew what he was thinking. After a long time, he clapped his hands and said, "Summon Han Biu Chu, Cheng Yun He, the generals of the 8 war zones, and the officials of the military, the Ministry of Revenue, and the Ministry of Appointments. Everyone must come to my place by tomorrow afternoon." Diwu Qingru's voice had a kind of decisiveness in it. Gloomy and cold. "Yes." A voice answered from outside the study room. Diwu Qingru rubbed his temples and slowly paced back and forth. After a long time, he stood in front of the window and said to himself, "Then, I will first overturn this world." Then, he turned around and flicked his finger. With a shua sound, a large map fell down from the opposite wall. This map was 3 feet wide from top to bottom, but it was nearly 10 feet long from left to right. The topography on the map was clear and extremely detailed. In the middle of the map, there were 2 words that Diwu Qingru had written in red, Iron Cloud. This was the map of the entire Iron Cloud nation. Schemes and tricks are only small tricks. Even if they are useful, they are not very useful. The real decisive power is on the battlefield. Diwu Qingru muttered, "If we attack from the front." His gaze fell on the border between Iron Cloud and Great Jiao. The 2 sides had been fighting for hundreds of years. That area, on the map, it was only as thick as a finger and not as long as an arm. However, in this area, the lives of tens of millions of outstanding soldiers had been buried for hundreds of years. The 2 countries fought each other here and there, fighting without rest. This place was a battlefield. It included dozens of mountains, hundreds of cities, canyons, and large-scale battlefield. Moreover, it was vast and spanned a long distance. The battle here was so loud that the neighboring mountains could not necessarily hear it. As for the places further away, they naturally could not hear it. In the wars of the past, the battle strategy was the same. One side would deliberately mislead the enemy, and then attack from the other side. Then, the enemy would meet the enemy head-on. The military strength would be in a stalemate, and both sides would dispatch troops to reinforce each other. This area was not small. Moreover, it was far beyond the scope of an ordinary battlefield. If it was a large-scale battle, it would be enough to set up a dozen large battlefields that could accommodate millions of people fighting. However, to put it bluntly, almost all the famous generals of the past had memorized the topography of this area. Some of them were so detailed that they even clearly remembered the peculiarities of each mountain. Even so, there were people constantly lying in ambush, people constantly losing their lives, and people constantly being harmed. This place was called the Land of Fighting Souls by the 2 countries of Iron Cloud and Great Jiao. Tens of millions of soldiers were buried here. If it was not called Land of Fighting Souls, then there was no other special name that could be given. King of Hell Chu, scheming is only a minor skill. Fighting for supremacy on the battlefield is the real skill. Diwu Qingru's deep gaze looked here and muttered, "King of Hell Chu, Tai Biu Tian, Tai Long Cheng. Let us decide who will belong to the world here." Chu Yang had now completed the evolution of his 5th grade revered sword artist. He still maintained his original posture, lying in the grass, and looking at the starry sky. It was almost dawn now. If he went into the water, he was afraid that it would be the morning of the day by the time he made a ruckus. That would be too big of a commotion. Therefore, he wanted to leave this time until night time. Then, he would need to go into the water in the afternoon. It would be close to night time by the time he found it. The battle would also need some time to reflect from such a deep underwater to the surface, just in time for night time. He would have a whole day's free time. Chu Yang unconsciously thought, I wonder how Master and Tantan are doing in the upper three heavens. Would Qingwu be very happy to receive those gifts from me? Would she smile? What are those brothers of mine doing after they went back? Has Jiyu Du Xing already given that thing to Jiyu Miaoling? I killed 2 people for him. Would he be annoyed? Ji Mo and Luo Ku Di should already be in the Kanglan battlefront. Would they be in danger? After thinking for a while, a clear figure suddenly appeared in his mind. Wu Qian. A pair of eyes with hidden bitterness was looking at him. Chu Yang was startled. He hastily shook his head. But another person was staring at him. Tai Bu Tian, the Emperor of Iron Cloud, was looking at him. Her gaze was gentle, but it contained deep expectations. Then, Diwu Qingru's face appeared. Chu Yang closed his eyes, and helplessly smiled bitterly. Since his rebirth, he had gone through a lot of things. It could be said that he hadn't stopped working for even half a day in such a long time. In addition to official matters, there were also private matters. Then, he had to spend a lot of time practicing martial arts every day. Every day, he had to make his physical body reach a few breakthroughs. Time passed little by little. In the morning, Chu Yang, Jing Meng Hun, and Yin Wu Tian sat together and ate a harmonious breakfast. Everyone was talking and laughing wittily. However, Jing Meng Hun and Yin Wu Tian looked very dispirited. It was obvious that they hadn't slept well these past few days. They weren't as spirited as Minister Chu. At noon, Yin Wu Tian found a few fishermen and asked them to go into the water to step on the lotus roots. But they didn't have more than 7 knots. Chu Yang sighed as he looked. After eating and drinking, Jing Meng Hun received a notice and hurried back to the Prime Minister's mansion. Yin Wu Tian was drunk and dizzy. He looked for people and changed to another place to continue the work. But nothing happened. Minister Chu shook his head and sighed. He didn't say a word. But Yin Wu Tian couldn't help but feel angry as he looked at Minister Chu's appearance. Moreover, the 4th King-level Master Yin had been having a bad time these past few days. So, he had to look at this King-level Master Jun Qingyang every day. His belly was filled with disgust, and he felt like it was about to burst. Great Zhao! Great Zhao! Great Zhao! Great Zhao is known as the richest in the world, but it's nothing more than this. King-level Master Jun Qingyang began to speak strange words. Yin Wu Tian almost covered his face and left. Moreover, this is the richest province in Great Zhao. TSK. Jun Qingyang's voice was strange. But it was deliberately strange. It made people's hair stand on end. It's known as the spirit of illustrious heroes. TSK. Jun Qingyang continued. I can't even find a lotus root. Yin Wu Tian's face was as black as iron. He stood there stupefied. It seems that this lotus lake can only be used to raise fish. King-level Master Jun Qingyang sighed. It's not that our Great Zhao doesn't have any. It's just that, stepping on lotus roots is a technical job. Yin Wu Tian suppressed his anger and said in a muffled voice, we know martial arts, but we don't know how to do it. TSK, do you want this king-level master to go down personally? Jun Qingyang squinted. I would have kicked this bastard into the lake if Prime Minister Diwu hadn't instructed me to do so. Yin Wu Tian's eyes blazed as he coldly said, I wouldn't dare to stop King-level Master Jun if you have such a refined interest. It seems that I have no choice but to go down personally. King-level Master Jun Qingyang stretched his legs and moved his waist. Then, he began to take off his clothes. Go down. You'll drown. You'll suffocate. You'll get entangled by the aquatic plants. You'll die and rot in there. Yin Wu Tian prayed viciously in his heart. But he still asked with concern, Brother Jun, do you really want to go down? Brother Jun? Jun Qingyang was bare-chested. He made a strange pose, and exposed an eye-catching scar that stretched from his chest to his belly. It meandered all over his body like a huge centipede. He then said with a strange smile, "Fourth king level Master Yin, you can't call me Brother Jun. My status is low, but you, ha 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 ha, have you ever heard of bamboo?" You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,